Prologue: The Shattered Romance. Once, Lucy Novak had believed that love was written in the stars, a grand epic of shimmering promises and bold declarations that would defy time. She once saw herself as a true romantic, a dreamer who cherished every tender vow, every sweeping gesture that spoke of a future built on trust and passion. In her heart, love was the kind of magic that transformed ordinary days into extraordinary sagas. Yet, one unassuming moment shattered that sacred illusion. It began on a seemingly mundane day in the supermarket. Lucy stood amid the neat rows of pasta sauces, her mind adrift in quiet reverie about the future she had so carefully envisioned. The soft hum of daily life blended with the promise of ordinary wonders, until Jonathan's voice, cold, distant, and devoid of any warmth, cut through the calm like a sudden winter gust. In barely a moment, 5 simple words, delivered in a tone that froze her very soul, altered everything. "I can't do this anymore." Those words, spoken with an indifferent finality, dismantled 3 years of shared laughter and whispered dreams as swiftly as a snowflake melts in the morning sun. In that instant, every carefully woven plan, engagement rings glinting with the promise of forever, wedding invitations waiting patiently on the table, was reduced to fragments of a memory too painful to touch. The future she believed in crumbled into dust beneath her trembling hands. Lucy's heart, which once beat with the certainty of fairy tale endings, now faltered in a rhythm that was uncertain and raw. The echo of that moment lingered like an unwelcome specter. Days blurred into weeks as the shock morphed into a gnawing despair. Lucy's mind replayed the betrayal repeatedly, each recollection a cruel reminder that the man she once trusted had chosen to sever their bond so casually, so decisively. Yet, as she wandered through the haze of her grief, an even more disconcerting revelation emerged: a newspaper headline announcing an engagement that bound Jonathan to another woman. The betrayal was no longer confined to the realm of personal hurt. It had become a public spectacle, a cruel twist of fate painted in bold print across her hometown. And thus, Lucy came to understand that love, rather than being the sublime tapestry of heartbeats and whispered promises, was nothing more than a chemical trap, a delicate yet fatal web of pleasure intermingled with the sting of abandonment. But fate, as it often does, had more secrets hidden in its labyrinthine depths. As Lucy endeavored to shield herself from further heartache, she embarked on a reluctant escape, a hastily arranged European getaway with her ever-optimistic best friend. It was meant to be an act of self-preservation, a desperate bid to outrun the ghost of what once was. Yet, in the midst of her flight from shattered dreams, Lucy remained oblivious to the fact that across a vast, mysterious ocean, beneath the shadow of ancient, towering mountains, someone was waiting for her. This mysterious presence, with a patience that defied the bounds of mortal time, and a devotion forged in forgotten legends, had already been silently preparing for her return. As the plane ascended and the sprawling cityscape fell away beneath her, Lucy felt the slow, almost imperceptible stirrings of an inner transformation. Her cynicism, a protective shell built from the shards of a broken promise, began to tremble under the weight of an unexplained longing, a desire that seemed as much a part of her as the beat of her heart. The world outside her window turned into a canvas smeared with hues of twilight and hope, and amid the chaos of her sorrow, a whisper of something new began to take shape. In that delicate balance between despair and possibility, Lucy found herself at the crossroads of an ancient mystery, where the tangible pain of a broken relationship met the intangible allure of a destiny yet to be written. The stark reality of Jonathan's betrayal was now interlaced with a tender echo, a promise that somewhere, beyond the veil of mundane existence, a love strong enough to withstand even the scythe of death was patiently awaiting its moment to rise. And so, as the airplane soared through ink-black night punctuated by distant stars, Lucy Novak's journey began anew. Not merely an escape from pain, but an odyssey toward rediscovering the truth about love, a truth that was as unpredictable as it was eternal, as fraught with heartache as it was luminous with the promise of redemption. This is the beginning of a tale where shattered dreams pave the way for the rediscovery of a deeper, more mysterious love, one that challenges the very fabric of mortal understanding, beckoning with the dual allure of both haunting loss and the hope of an undying embrace. What awaits Lucy on this perilous path remains cloaked in shadows, yet each step forward carries the echo of a promise that even from the ruins of a broken heart, something wondrous might yet emerge. The engagement announcement and cynicism. In the weeks that followed that bitter day in the grocery store, Lucy's world became a kaleidoscope of shattered illusions and piercing doubts. The once radiant promise of love had dimmed to a cold, distant echo, a ghost of hope replaced by a heavy, unyielding sadness. As the days slipped by, she found herself entrenched in endless introspection, questioning every cherished belief about love that she had ever held dear. One crisp morning, as autumn's early chill whispered through the streets of her hometown, Lucy's routine was abruptly shattered by a jarring sight on the front page of the local newspaper. There, boldly printed in a glossy, unrelenting headline, was an engagement announcement not for a love rekindled, but for Jonathan, now bound in matrimony to someone his colleagues had merely labeled a friend. The cold symmetry of that announcement struck Lucy with a force that sent shivers through the remnants of her fragile heart. In that stark public declaration, Lucy saw the cruel irony of love's promises. What was once a sublime dream had transformed into a nightmarish reality. The vows, the fleeting hopes, the intensity of a love she had nurtured in secret, all seemed to collapse under the weight of betrayal and self-interest. Here lay a man who had once vowed to share a future of tenderness and passion, now relegated to a role scripted by convenience and indifference. The announcement was not merely news. It was a verdict that declared the futility of her former beliefs. Standing at the edge of a new day, Lucy felt an overwhelming bitterness seep into her soul. The words engagement and friend swirled before her eyes in a cruel dance, taunting her with memories of promises unfulfilled. In the sterile language of tabloid headlines, love had been reduced to a transaction, a mere chemical reaction, predictable and fleeting. It was as if the intricate tapestry of emotions she had once believed in was nothing more than an elaborate trap laid by fate, a trap that ensnared the heart in a web of delightful pain and inevitable abandonment. With each page she turned, Lucy's trust in the sanctity of love crumbled further. She began to see it as nothing more than a chemical trap, where every sweet moment was interlaced with the bitterness of loss. The heartbeat of her fragile optimism faltered, and a cold cynicism took root. A cynicism that whispered, "This isn't love at all. It's deception, it's betrayal, and it's nothing but a cruel illusion." In her solitude, the notion of love as an unpredictable, sacred force slowly transformed into an artifact of painful memories and fearful expectations. Yet, amid the ruins of her disillusionment, a faint, almost imperceptible question began to flicker within her mind. Is this bitter cynicism the inevitable truth, or merely a shield forged from the remnants of heartbreak? Could it be that in rejecting the beauty of love, she might also be rejecting the profound mystery that had the power to reshape her destiny? The question danced on the edge of her thoughts, both tantalizing and terrifying, as if daring her to reconsider everything she had come to despise. As days turned into nights, Lucy's internal battle deepened. She oscillated between the desire to protect herself with an impenetrable armor of disbelief and the fragile yearning to feel that once cherished spark again. In the mirror of her solitude, she saw not the girl who had dreamed of chivalrous romances and fairy tale endings, but a woman haunted by the shadows of a promise broken. Every reflection was a reminder of trust betrayed, a trust that, once lost, painted love not as a beacon of hope, but as a mere chemical reaction, a fleeting concoction of hormones and desperate longing. The engagement announcement had cemented her growing disillusionment, yet paradoxically, it also stirred a subtle, inexplicable pull toward the unknown. Deep within her, buried under layers of grief and cynicism, a whisper of defiance remained. It was as if she sensed that beyond the bitter residue of betrayal lay an uncharted realm of possibilities, one where the very essence of love might be redefined. Could fate, in its own inscrutable way, be offering a twist to her destiny? Was this public shaming of her past an omen that the world was poised to reveal secrets even darker, yet ultimately more liberating? In the quiet moments, before sleep took over, Lucy would sit by her window, gazing at a sky scattered with stars, and ponder these questions. The stars, indifferent yet eternal, seemed to murmur softly of promises that defied human comprehension. Their gentle shimmer was a silent reminder that perhaps love was not as simple or as clinical as it appeared. Even in its most transient form, it held a mystical allure, a potency that could both mend the deepest scars and expose the soul to the most ruthless winds. Thus, as autumn deepened and the shadows grew longer, Lucy stood at a precipice of inner transformation. The engagement announcement, a symbol of her shattered past, had done more than confirm her bitter cynicism. It had ignited a spark of reluctant curiosity. In that spark, a possibility took shape, that the path of disillusionment might eventually lead her to a truth beyond her wildest, most fervent dreams. And so, with a heart battered yet unyielding, Lucy prepared herself for the uncertain journey ahead. A journey where every painful memory was a stepping stone toward an unimagined destiny, where love might once more rise from the ashes of despair. The European getaway. A fragile escape. After the bitter shock of betrayal and the cruel engagement announcement, Lucy felt that her world had grown too heavy to bear. Determined, yet reluctant, to leave behind the painful remnants of her old life, she accepted her best friend Sophia's invitation to escape to Europe, a far-off refuge that promised both solace and mystery. In the soft glow of a late autumn morning, the two set off, leaving behind the mundane confines of grocery aisles and familiar streets, in search of a new beginning. The airplane ride was quiet and contemplative. As the plane ascended, Lucy watched, the patchwork of her hometown shrink beneath a sea of clouds. Memories of the grocery store, where she had once stood, oblivious to heartbreak as she compared pasta sauces, faded into the distance. In their place arose visions of ancient cities, cobblestone streets, and a history that seemed whispered on every breeze. The modern world, with its sterile routines and predictable rhythms, was giving way to an age-old tapestry woven with legends and secrets. Sophia, ever the optimist, chattered softly about the plans that lay ahead. Of narrow, winding lanes that echoed with the footfalls of centuries past, and quaint cafes where time seemed to slow, inviting one to linger over rich, dark coffee and quiet conversations. Lucy listened, her thoughts a tangled mix of sorrow and a faint, fragile hope that somewhere, amidst the romance of old Europe, she might rediscover a fragment of lost wonder. Yet beneath her careful exterior, her cynical heart clung to the idea that love was nothing more than a chemical trap, an illusion built on transient euphoria and the sting of inevitable abandonment. The journey was not without its contrasts. By day, they traveled through bustling modern cities where glass and steel rose proudly into the sky. But at dusk, the landscape transformed into something altogether more ancient and enigmatic. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the sky was painted in hues of violet and indigo, and shadows lengthened over crumbling castle ruins and narrow alleyways that whispered secrets. In these moments, the mundane world gave way to the echoes of times long past, a world where legends were as real as the gentle murmur of the wind and the soft patter of rain on ancient stone. Every step away from her old life felt like both a liberation and an exile. Lucy's mind, still weighed down by the remnants of betrayal, began to sense an undercurrent of something unspoken. There were subtle hints, a fleeting reflection in a shop window, a whispered name on the lips of a stranger, an inexplicable tug at the core of her being that suggested someone, or something, was awaiting her arrival in this far-off realm. It was as if the very air was charged with anticipation, carrying an ancient secret that only the brave or the broken could comprehend. On one of their train rides through the countryside, as the modern world blurred past in a montage of green fields and glistening rivers, Lucy sat in silence. The rhythmic chug of the locomotive echoed the steady beat of her weary heart, and, for a moment, she allowed herself to wonder if escaping was truly an act of self-preservation or a desperate leap into an unknown destiny. In that suspended moment, the idea that fate itself might be drawing her toward a purpose far greater than heartbreak crossed her mind. Could it be that her shattered past was merely the threshold to an even more compelling future? A secret, waiting beyond the familiar routines of everyday life? Her skepticism battled with a nascent curiosity, and in the quiet compartments of the train, she scribbled half-formed thoughts in a small leather journal. Every word was an attempt to capture the elusive mix of despair and possibility that swirled within her. Sophia's light-hearted remarks, meant to ease the tension, only deepened Lucy's introspection as she pondered the nature of love and destiny. Was her cynicism truly a protective shield, or was it a brittle barrier that might soon crumble under the weight of an unexpected miracle? As they crossed the English Channel, the gentle sound of lapping waves and distant foghorns created a cinematic backdrop that stirred deep echoes of myth and memory. The vast expanse of the ocean, dark and infinite, promised the discovery of lands where time moved in curious rhythms. Lands where every cobblestone and every ruined archway might hide a story untold. There was a strange, almost otherworldly quality to the journey, as if she were not merely fleeing a life marred by betrayal, but being drawn toward a destiny that shimmered on the edge of possibility. In the quiet moments following each conversation, and every turn of the train, Lucy felt a subtle shift within. The irony of escaping to a place famous for its storied past was not lost on her. Here in Europe, beneath the weight of ancient secrets and the grandeur of forgotten empires, her cynical view of love and connection might be challenged. The landscape itself seemed to promise that even the deepest wounds could heal, that the frost of betrayal might someday give way to a thaw of untold beauty. As their journey pressed on, and the silhouette of distant mountains gradually emerged, on the horizon, Lucy's thoughts turned with a mix of fear and anticipation. Was it possible that, hidden amidst those towering, time-worn peaks, lay a destiny waiting just for her? A destiny shrouded in mystery, echoing with the legacies of legends and the promise of renewal? In that enchanted silence, the seeds of hope began to stir. A delicate reminder that perhaps, even after the most devastating heartbreak, fate might yet offer a new path bathed in the light of possibility. Chapter 1. Arrival at Blackest Castle. The bus rumbled along the rain-slicked road as Lucy and the remaining members of the tour group drew near to Blackest Castle, its silhouette emerging like a dark memory against the slate-gray sky. Even before their arrival, Lucy could sense that this was no ordinary stop along the travel itinerary. Something about the castle's brooding presence set it apart. The landscape around it transformed into a realm that seemed suspended in time, a place where modernity and myth converged. As the bus pulled to a slow stop at the heavy iron gates, Lucy leaned forward from her window seat, her breath fogging the glass. Beyond the perimeter, the castle loomed, its towering spires piercing the sky like ancient fingers reaching out from another era. The structure was a patchwork of weathered stone, each block worn smooth by the passage of centuries, yet still sturdy enough to evoke a sense of foreboding strength. Ivy clung to the walls in tangled, unyielding clusters, its dark, glossy leaves a silent testament to the neglect and secrets of time. Stepping off the bus, Lucy's ears caught the soft murmur of an old wind as it whispered through the courtyard. The area before the castle was vast and open, yet shrouded in mystery, a labyrinth of shadowed arches and crumbling statues. The stones beneath her feet, cool and damp from the recent rainfall, seemed to hum with the weight of forgotten stories. Even the light itself appeared tinged with melancholy, as if it knew of the castle's hidden sorrows and long-lost legends. Despite the playful teasing from Sophia, who joked that the castle looked more like a haunted relic than a historical monument, Lucy found herself inexplicably drawn to the eerie monument. There was an undeniable allure in the castle's enigmatic aura, a magnetic pull that promised both danger and wonder. While Sophia's laughter echoed faintly in the background, Lucy's mind wandered beyond the surface of the structure. She wondered about the souls that had once walked these very grounds, the laughter and lament, the triumphs and tragedies that had been witnessed by these silent walls. The castle's architecture was a study in contrasts, both grand and decrepit. Its turrets and spires, rising defiantly against the dim sky, evoked images of chivalric battles and ancient feuds, while the decaying ramparts hinted at neglect and sorrow. Every archway and hidden nook seemed to guard a secret, each stone a mute witness to a bygone era. Lucy could almost feel the heavy breath of history in the cool autumn air, a palpable presence that moved unseen behind the ornate carvings and faded tapestries. As she wandered closer, Lucy's senses were overwhelmed by the natural symphony of the old fortress. The muted clatter of distant raindrops mingled with the rustling of leaves stirred by an unseen hand, and the creak of ancient wood whispered softly against the backdrop of the stone walls. There was a rhythm to it, a cadence that spoke of endless cycles of decay and renewal, of time passing yet ever remaining, a duality that both repelled and fascinated her. In the courtyard, the scene was almost cinematic. Shadows danced across the uneven ground, accentuated by sporadic bursts of sunlight that fought desperately through the overcast sky. Statues of forgotten heroes and mythic creatures, half swallowed by the ivy, appeared as spectral guardians, their stony faces both stern and sorrowful. Lucy marveled at the juxtaposition of decay and grandeur, a structure that had witnessed both the splendid peaks of history and the quiet desolation of memory. Despite the evident splendor, an undercurrent of tension rippled through the atmosphere. There was a sense of anticipation, as though the very stones of Blackest Castle were bracing for an imminent revelation. Lucy's heart quickened with a curious mix of trepidation and excitement, each step drawing her deeper into a mystery that felt as vast as it was intimate. The castle, with all its timeless majesty, seemed to be calling out, not just to her, but to anyone who dared to listen, to secrets and truths long buried beneath layers of stone and sorrow. Even as the group regrouped for the next phase of their tour, Lucy lingered near the massive oak doors. Her eyes traced every intricate detail, the ornate ironwork, the faded crest etched into the wood, each element hinting at stories that defied simple explanation. Sophia's chatter faded into a distant murmur as Lucy's mind wandered into the realm of possibilities. Was this a place where old wounds still bled? Could it be that deep within these shadowed corridors lay the key to healing, or perhaps even further heartache? The palpable energy of the castle, dark and magnetic, left an indelible impression on Lucy. In that quiet, charged moment, it became clear that Blackest Castle was more than a mere relic of the past. It was a living monument to secrets waiting to be unveiled, a silent promise that the mysteries of bygone eras were not yet fully laid to rest. As the soft clamor of the tour group resumed in the background, Lucy's thoughts were already racing ahead, wondering what ancient tale awaited her discovery beyond those imposing weathered gates. A destiny, perhaps, hidden in plain sight, among the ivy and stone, waiting for the moment it would reveal itself in whispers and shadows. Chapter 1. The Tour and Unusual Encounters. After the initial awe of stepping onto the castle grounds, Lucy began the guided tour with a mix of quiet anticipation and curious skepticism. As the group shuffled along the winding paths of Blackest Castle, Sophia chattered playfully, her light-hearted teasing weaving through the air like a gentle breeze. Yet even as Sophia joked about ghostly figures and ancient curses, Lucy's thoughts remained deeply rooted in the subtle, eerie pulse of the place. The tour guide, a man with a soft, measured voice that seemed to echo off the time-worn walls, began recounting the castle's storied past. His words drifted past Lucy like distant memories, each tale laden with hints of glory and despair. As he spoke of battles fought in the shadow of these very walls and lovers separated by fate, Lucy found herself both comforted and unnerved. There was an odd solace in the familiarity of the legends, but also a pressing sense of unanswered questions, as if the castle itself harbored secrets beyond the storyteller's reach. While the group clustered around a grand, weathered archway, a peculiar incident caught Lucy's attention. An elderly woman, her hands trembling yet determined, clutched what appeared to be an exit ticket, a small, folded slip of paper, before gliding silently out of sight. This strange behavior, coupled with hushed whispers among the other tourists, sent a ripple of unease through Lucy's mind. What was the significance of that ticket? Was it merely a relic of a long-forgotten system, or did it hint at some deeper, concealed ritual taking place within these ancient walls? Lucy's internal dialogue swirled with conflicting thoughts. On one hand, the castle's historic grandeur provided a sense of warmth, a connection to a time when valor and romance intermixed freely. On the other, every anomaly, every whispered rumor seemed to murmur of secrets darker than any mere tourist attraction. As she wandered through the maze-like corridors, Lucy could not shake the sensation that there was more to this place than the guide's recitations. Shadows danced along the walls with a life of their own, and even the soft murmur of the autumn wind felt like a clandestine conversation meant only for the ears of those who dared to listen. Sophia, ever the practical optimist, chided Lucy gently as they passed a narrow staircase cloaked in ivy. "You're letting your imagination run wild again," she said with a laugh, nudging her friend. But Lucy could not dismiss the persistent questions. She recalled how, when she first glimpsed the castle's towering spires, a strange mix of comfort and foreboding had washed over her, a feeling that perhaps, despite its ruinous state, this ancient fortress was in some way alive, its history pulsing through its crumbling stone. The group moved on, and Lucy found herself drawn to a secluded alcove, partially hidden from the main tour. Here, a loose stone and a faded inscription caught her eye, a reminder of a story that might have once been whispered among the common folk, now nearly swallowed by time. As she paused, letting her fingers trace the cold, rough surface, faint murmurs from nearby tourists reached her ears. They were speaking in hushed tones about the forbidden door that was rarely mentioned by the guide, a door said to hide something unspeakable behind its heavy wooden facade. The air in that secret part of the castle felt thicker, laden with unspoken tension. Lucy's mind raced with possibilities. Could that door truly guard mysteries that had been deliberately concealed for centuries? Was it a threshold to a passage that defied both time and logic? The questions buzzed in her thoughts, intensifying the subtle thrill that coursed through her veins. Even as she sought reassurance from familiar landmarks, a faded portrait here, a rusted key there, the sense of an impending revelation proved impossible to ignore. During a brief pause in the tour, while others scribbled notes or debated spiritedly over historical inaccuracies, Lucy's inner voice grew louder. She reflected on the contrast between the mundane realities of her past life, the trivial routine of grocery shopping and comparing pasta sauces, and the allure of this timeless stronghold. Every relic, every creaking corridor seemed to whisper of lives once lived, of love and betrayal etched into its very foundation. In these moments, her initial cynicism began to waver, replaced by a cautious intrigue. Perhaps, deep within the castle's labyrinth, lay not just relics of an ancient era, but a mirror reflecting parts of her own fragmented soul. Sophia rejoined her at a small cobblestone courtyard, her eyes alight with a mixture of amusement and concern. "Lucy, you're deep in thought again. What's captured your attention this time?" she asked, half laughing, half curious. Lucy hesitated before replying. It's like there's a secret in every stone here, a story that isn't meant to be easily told. Her voice, soft and laden with wonder, underscored the intimacy of the moment, a moment that both drew her closer to the castle's enigmatic heart and deepened the chasm between the ordinary and the extraordinary. As the tour continued, Lucy couldn't help but feel that the castle's mysteries were not confined to tales of ancient battles or tragic romances. They were active, pulsing forces, waiting for the right moment to reveal themselves. With every step, every whispered rumor, from the elderly woman's curious exit ticket to the furtive glances exchanged between strangers, the castle beckoned her to look deeper, to question further. As the group gathered near a heavy, ornate door at the far end of a shadow-draped hallway, Lucy felt her pulse quicken with anticipation. This door, marked by time and mystery, seemed to be the gateway to something far more profound than the tour guide had ever hinted. In that instant, as muted conversations fell away into silence, Lucy's intuition screamed that beyond this threshold lay secrets that might shatter everything she thought she knew. With a final lingering glance at the door's weathered carvings, she found herself irresistibly drawn to it, a silent promise of revelations soon to unfold. Chapter 1. Into the restricted wing and hidden passage. As the sound of the tour guide's voice faded behind her, Lucy found herself standing at the edge of possibility. The meticulously maintained route of the group began to dissolve into a shadowy realm, one that whispered temptations of secrets long sealed away. With a surge of determination tempered by trepidation, Lucy steeled herself to venture off the beaten path. This was a bold, solitary decision, to wander into the forbidden East Wing, a place strictly off-limits, yet pulsing with a mysterious allure that no barrier could resist. Every step toward the restricted wing felt like crossing an invisible line, a departure from the safety of known histories into a realm of decaying stone and untold wonder. The massive wooden door, marked with a faded sigil and flanked by remnants of ironwork, beckoned like the portal to another life. Lucy hesitated only for a heartbeat before pushing it open, her hand trembling with a mix of excitement and anxiety. The door creaked in a slow, deliberate symphony, the sound echoing down a corridor where time seemed to hold its breath. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of damp earth and the musky perfume of old stone. Dust motes danced lazily in the slanting rays of subdued light that fought through narrow, grimy windows. Every surface, from the high, arched ceiling to the cold, rough walls, was imbued with an almost sentient presence, a murmur of voices from centuries past. Lucy's heart pounded in her chest as she advanced deeper into this hidden sanctum, feeling the weight of unspoken memories pressing against her every step. The corridor was narrow and claustrophobic, its floor uneven beneath her cautious tread. She could almost taste the anticipation as she passed door after door, each sealed with rusted metal and layers of peeling paint that bore silent testimony to time's relentless march. The silence was profound, punctuated only by the soft tap of her own footsteps and the occasional whisper of wind snaking through cracks in the old masonry. In a small, secluded chamber at the end of the hall, Lucy's eyes caught sight of something that made her pause in awe, a painting that stood out against the drab, decaying backdrop. It was a striking portrait of a massive black wolf, its fur rendered in deep, inky shades that absorbed the sparse light. Next to the wolf, the image of a woman draped in a medieval gown was barely visible, her face mysteriously missing, as if purposely defaced by time or intent. The composition was jagged, the edges of the canvas torn in places, lending an air of violent disruption to the otherwise enigmatic beauty of the image. Lucy approached the painting with slow, deliberate steps, feeling as though she were being drawn into its realm. The frame of the painting, carved from dark, ancient wood that felt peculiarly warm under her fingertips, seemed to pulse with a quiet life. With each gentle touch along its intricate edges, the carved patterns told stories of rituals and lost lore. Her mind flooded with questions. Why had someone removed the woman's face? What connection did this wolf, its eyes seemingly alive, with frozen intensity, have with the castle's own dark history? The room seemed to breathe around her. Dust swirled in little eddies, as if stirred by the soft murmur of voices from the past, each particle a fragment of a story waiting to be told. Lucy's internal dialogue grew louder, a mixture of fear and fascination. This is no ordinary artifact, she thought, her pulse quickening. There must be a hidden tale behind this defaced image, a secret that someone has carefully guarded for centuries. Her eyes scanned the entire canvas, noticing subtle details that might have escaped the casual observer. The almost imperceptible glimmer of metallic paint beneath the wolf's fur, a series of cryptic symbols etched faintly along the border, and the play of light on the smooth, worn surface of the frame. Each detail was a clue, a fragment of a puzzle that promised to reveal a deeper mystery. The more she looked, the more the painting seemed to come alive, beckoning her to reach beyond its artifice to a truth that lay just beneath the surface. With a hesitant hand, Lucy reached out to trace one of the intricate carvings along the bottom of the frame. As her fingers brushed the elegant curve of a rosette carved into the wood, a sudden, almost imperceptible click resonated through the silence. For a long, breathless moment, she stood frozen, her hand suspended in midair, as if time itself had paused to watch her discovery. Then, as if in response to her touch, the painting began to shift. A hidden seam along the edge gave way to reveal a narrow gap, an entrance hidden behind the canvas. The image of the black wolf, intense and enigmatic, seemed to watch over the aperture, its gaze a silent warning and invitation all at once. Lucy's heart thudded in her ears as she stared in astonishment. Here, in this secluded chamber within, the forbidden wing, lay a secret passage carved into the very backbone of Blackest Castle, a passage that promised answers, or perhaps even more questions. In that electrifying moment, the sense of danger and wonder reached its peak. The hidden passage, revealed by a touch so gentle yet transformative, stirred something deep within Lucy, a mixture of fear, longing, and the irresistible allure of the unknown. As the gap widened slightly, offering a glimpse into a dark corridor. Beyond, she knew that her life was about to take a turn into uncharted territories. With a final, cautious breath and a trembling hand resting against the cool stone wall beyond the hidden door, Lucy stepped closer, ready to unravel the mystery that lay waiting in the shadows, her heart brimming with anticipation at what secrets were meant to be unearthed. Chapter 2. The closing of the castle and growing tension. The soft murmur of a fading day was abruptly shattered when Mr. Dragomir, the castle's brooding caretaker, appeared at the tour group's side. His face, weathered and etched with the authority of time, bore an unmistakable urgency as he informed them, in a voice low and measured, that the castle was closing in just 15 minutes. His words, terse and final, sent a ripple of alarm through the gathered visitors. For Lucy, the warning was like a jolt, a staccato note of reality amid a symphony of whispers and shadows. As the caretaker's admonition echoed through the cool, empty corridors, the group began to hastily gather their belongings. Some scrambled for their phones, others exchanged startled glances, while a few muttered excuses as if the fading light and closing gates were an inconvenient interruption to their leisurely expedition through history. Yet, in the midst of the controlled chaos, Lucy's mind churned with a torrent of conflicted emotions. She felt a surge of adrenaline as she realized that the castle's imposing structure and its dark, seductive secrets were unwilling to let her go so easily. The urgency in Mr. Dragomir's words was matched only by the magnetic pull of Blackest Castle itself, a call that was as familiar as it was forbidden. Her heart pounded with the rhythm of a hidden drum, as if every cobblestone and every shadow whispered in unison, "Stay. Do not leave yet." As footsteps quickened and the sound of hurried whispers filled the air, Lucy found herself hesitating, at a junction in the hallway. Sophia, ever practical, tugged at her sleeve, urging her to step away and join the retreat of the rest of the group. "Lucy, we need to go now," she insisted, her tone a blend of concern and impatience. Yet while Sophia's eyes darted toward the distant exit, Lucy's gaze was drawn to the depths of the ancient passageways behind her. passages that promised revelations just beyond the fading light. In the growing gloom, the decaying stone walls seemed to pulse with hidden life. The rapid shift from the safety of daylight to the cold, encroaching darkness heightened the tension. Every echo of hurried footsteps, every muffled rustle of discarded brochures, amplified Lucy's internal turbulence. The stark warning to leave clashed with the inexplicable compulsion that urged her to press further into the castle's secretive heart. Mr. Dragomir's presence loomed larger as he strode past Lucy, his eyes scanning the group with an intensity that brooked no delay. "We must depart immediately," he repeated, his voice carrying the weight of ancient decrees. Yet, for Lucy, his stern command only deepened the sense of mystery. What was it about this fortress that held her so captive, even when reason screamed for her to retreat? A dissonance churned within her, a battle between the rational urge for safety and the visceral, inexplicable pull toward untold secrets. The cool air, heavy with the scent of damp stone and aged memories, seemed to caress her skin and beckon her forward. In that charged moment, Lucy recognized that the castle was not merely a relic of the past to be observed and left behind. It was a living enigma, a repository of stories that insisted on revealing themselves only to those who dared to linger in its twilight corridors. Confusion and urgency swirled together as the group began the familiar scramble toward the main exit. The echo of flurried activity, the rustle of hurried coats, the clatter of footsteps on uneven floors, resounded through the ancient passage, each sound amplified by the castle's imposing architecture. Yet Lucy felt as though the very stones beneath her feet were reluctant to let her go, as if they too had chosen to hold on to the secret of her presence. Her mind, a whirlpool of lingering doubts and burgeoning questions, fixated on that delicate balance between duty and destiny. She recalled the strange, almost hypnotic sight of the hidden passage behind the mysterious painting of the Black Wolf, and her pulse quickened with recollections of that uncanny, sentient warmth that emanated from the carved frame. That hidden entrance whispered of forbidden realms and undiscovered truths that no mere warning could silence. As the murmur of departure grew louder, Lucy stood at the threshold of conflicting paths. Around her, the group surged toward the exit, with determined haste, but she remained rooted, caught in the tension of an unspoken dare. Was it her heart's folly, or was fate itself nudging her to confront the darkness head-on? With every fiber of her being trembling between fear and an insatiable curiosity, Lucy found herself poised on the brink of leaving the known world behind. In that suspended moment, the castle's ancient timbers seemed to murmur in a language older than time, a call to journey deeper into its forbidden recesses. The juxtaposition was striking. While the outside world demanded an orderly exit, inside, the castle's pulse beat with chaotic promise. Lucy's inner turmoil crescendoed into a single crystalline question. What unseen force compels me to stay? And, more hauntingly, what awaits if I dare to ignore Mr. Dragomir's insistent plea? Just as the group neared the safety of the grand exit, a soft, almost imperceptible sound of shifting stone reached her ears from the direction of the restricted corridors. It was as though the silence itself was parting to reveal something extraordinary. In that fleeting, breathless second, Lucy understood that the castle was not finished with her yet, and as she cast one last, lingering glance toward the dark passage that beckoned, her eyes gleamed with both trepidation and the promise of an unfolding mystery. Chapter 2. The Descent of the Staircase and the Mysterious Doll. Lucy's hesitation gave way to a resolute curiosity as she stepped away from the hurried exodus. With each tentative footstep, she found herself drawn toward a narrow, spiraling staircase concealed in the shadow of the restricted wing. The ancient steps, worn smooth by countless generations, creaked with a slow, mournful rhythm that echoed the soft beating of her anxious heart. The air grew noticeably cooler as she descended, carrying with it the faint but unmistakable aroma of damp stone and forgotten memories. Her descent was measured and deliberate. Each creak of the worn wooden steps resonated in the near darkness, heightening her sense of vulnerability and fascination simultaneously. It was as if the staircase itself was an unwinding tale, a narrative of loss, longing, and secret paths charted in darkness. Lucy's hand lightly grazed the cold, rough railing, its surface etched with faded carvings that hinted at symbols of protection and sorrow from a long-forgotten era. With each rhythmic step, she felt the heavy weight of the past pressing in around her, beckoning her deeper into the cavernous underbelly of Blackest Castle. At the base of the spiral, the dim light revealed a small chamber whose presence was as unexpected as it was intriguing. In the corner of this shadowed room, partially obscured by a shroud of dust and draped fabric, lay an old porcelain doll. Its cracked surface and dulled eyes told a story of abandonment and sorrow, a relic that seemed to have been lost in time. The sight of the doll stirred something deep within Lucy, drawing forth memories of childhood innocence now marred by the loss of comfort and security. The doll's expression, frozen in a semblance of both innocence and melancholy, evoked a bittersweet blend of nostalgia and a dormant pain that she had long tried to bury. Lucy approached the doll with a mix of trepidation and longing. Every step was heavy with the resonance of the doll's silent presence, as if it were a vessel carrying fragments of a story yearning to be remembered. The air in the chamber, cool and dense with dust motes caught in a gentle, ghostly beam of light, seemed to pulse with energy as she neared her discovery. Leaning in, she reached out to gently touch the doll's porcelain hand. The sensation was unexpected. A subtle spark, like the brushing of electric currents, flickered through her fingertips. In that moment, an unexplained chill seized her, mingling with a sensation of warmth that seemed to emanate from the depths of the delicate relic. Memories long obscured by the passage of time began to swell within Lucy's mind. She recalled a time when she, too, had clung to a cherished doll, a silent confidant during nights filled with both dreams and fears. Now, in the dim glow of this forgotten chamber, that childhood relic reappeared, not as a mere toy, but as a symbol of past comfort and present loss. Its presence stoked the embers of emotional wounds she had thought long sealed by time. With Akida, every careful caress of its time-worn face, the doll seemed to whisper secrets of a forgotten era, a narrative that intertwined with her own, reawakening feelings she had long suppressed beneath layers of cynicism and despair. As Lucy's heart fluttered with both dread and an odd sense of familiarity, the chamber's stillness was broken only by the faint, rhythmic tapping of her heartbeat echoing against the ancient walls. Outside, the sounds of the castle's restless corridors had faded into a muted hum, leaving her utterly alone with the relic of her past. The doll's presence was magnetic. Its eyes, though vacant, seemed to hold 1,000 untold stories that demanded to be unraveled. The silence of the chamber wrapped around her like a thick cloak, each breath punctuated by a deep-seated question echoing in the caverns of her mind. In that breathless moment, as Lucy clutched the fragile porcelain in her trembling hand, a tiny, almost imperceptible shift seemed to ripple across the room. The doll, positioned so deliberately and yet so painfully abandoned, resonated with an inexplicable energy. It was as if the artifact was a bridge, a quiet conduit between the sorrow of what had been and the uncertain possibility of what might still come. Lucy's eyes, wide with wonder, slowly scanned the chamber, searching for further signs of connection, for any clue that might decode the language of the past etched into every corner of the room. Her thoughts raced unbidden. Was this doll merely a lost remnant of a child's forgotten play, or did it serve as a key to unlocking deeper, perhaps darker secrets about this mysterious place? Could it be that her fated journey, marked by heartbreak and reluctant escape, was somehow inextricably linked to the relic now cradled in her hand? The question dangled in the cool air of the chamber, unanswered and potent. A subtle shiver ran down her spine as she pondered whether this brief, electric contact was a mere coincidence or an invitation, a silent summons from forces beyond her control. As the soft glow of the hidden chamber continued to flicker over the solemn face of the doll, Lucy felt the stirrings of something profound. This unexpected relic, imbued with the echoes of forgotten laughter and lingering sorrow, pressed its mystery into her heart. In that quiet, charged silence, a truth began to emerge like a faint whisper carried on the wind. A truth that spoke of a connection between the innocence of the past and the formidable challenges of her present fate. With her gaze fixed on the lost doll, Lucy wondered, with a mixture of awe and apprehension, what other secrets might lie hidden in the recesses of the castle. The chamber and its silent storyteller left her with one burning, unanswered question. What is the true significance of this relic, and how does it connect to the destiny that beckons her ever deeper into the heart of Blackest Castle? Chapter 2. The Reappearance of the Pendant and the Unsettling Command. Just as Lucy began to gather her thoughts and brace herself against the castle's oppressive quiet, a sudden, otherworldly sensation rippled through her. In a fleeting moment that blurred the boundaries between reality and a haunting vision, her hand rose inexplicably to her throat. There, where she had never noticed before, lay a silver crescent pendant, a delicate, almost ethereal talisman that now rested against her skin as if it belonged to her all along. The silver glimmer seemed to pulse softly with a quiet, rhythmic intensity, as if it were attuned to the beating of her heart. Lucy froze, her breath catching as she regarded the unexpected adornment. The pendant's shape, a crescent cradling, a shimmering moonlit stone, evoked echoes of myth and ancient rituals. It felt predestined, like a key meant for a door hidden deep within her own destiny, waiting to be unlocked. As she stared into a small, round mirror fixed on a nearby wall, she barely recognized her own reflection. Wide eyes, filled with a mixture of awe and apprehension, and that mysterious pendant, now undeniably a part of her. Before she could piece together how this strange object had found its way onto her, the heavy footsteps of Mr. Dragomir approached, echoing through the corridor, with an authority that brooked no delay. His face, etched with stern concern and a tinge of something unspoken, bore into her as he halted abruptly in front of her. "Lucy," he intoned, his voice low and resolute. "That pendant was never meant to be on you." His words, crisp, yet laden with an undercurrent of ancient finality, sent a shiver down her spine. For a moment, Lucy's mind spun in a vortex of confusion. Mr. Dragomir's stern glare and the uncanny aura of the pendant collided within her, leaving her with more questions than answers. "What do you mean?" she managed to murmur, her voice wavering between defiance and fear. It was as if the very air around them had thickened, leaving an almost tangible tension suspended in space, a silence heavy with portent. Mr. Dragomir's eyes narrowed as he stepped closer, reducing the space between them until she could feel the cold intensity of his scrutiny. "This is no ordinary trinket," he said, his tone echoing off the ancient stones. "It is tied to the very heart of this castle, to the blood and magic that flow in its veins, and it is not yours by chance." His words reverberated through Lucy's thoughts like a spell, imbuing the pendant's gleam with a significance that defied simple explanation. The silver crescent, once a mere whisper of unknown heritage, now radiated an unmistakable power. Lucy felt as if the pendant were a silent messenger from a bygone era, a relic imbued with secrets and promises. It was as though fate itself had chosen to intervene, placing the pendant upon her with deliberate precision. Yet, the meaning of this act remained shrouded in mystery. As Mr. Dragomir reached out with a weathered hand, his gesture was both commanding and oddly tender. "Give it to me," he ordered, extending his hand with a reverence that belied the firmness of his command. The tension in the corridor mounted rapidly, and Lucy could feel her pulse pounding in her ears. The pendant, cool and radiant against her skin, seemed to vibrate with an energy that resonated far deeper than physical touch. For a long, suspended moment, She hesitated. Every instinct urged her to cling to the enigmatic gift, to hold on to, the promise that it might unlock some hidden part of her destiny. But the gravity of Mr. Dragomir's words, and the look in his eyes, drew a line between duty and desire. "It doesn't belong to you," he repeated in a softer yet urgent tone, his voice layered with the weight of unspoken history. Lucy's inner turmoil became a battleground where reason and longing collided. The pendant was a puzzle piece she never knew was missing from her life, yet its origins and purpose were cloaked in ancient lore and dangerous implications. Was it meant to free her, or to bind her to a fate far beyond her control? As her hand hovered in the balance between acceptance and defiance, the world around her faded into an almost dreamlike quality, a distorted blend of time-worn corridors and flickering candlelight that whispered of lost loves and hidden battles. In that charged liminal space, every detail seemed to crackle with significance. The soft luster of silver, the measured cadence of Mr. Dragomir's voice, the silence that fell like a shroud over the ancient stones. All of it conspired to form a tableau of both vulnerability and unyielding power. Lucy felt as if she were on the precipice of a revelation that might reshape every notion she held about love, destiny, and herself. "Please," she managed in a trembling whisper, her voice barely audible. "What does it mean? Why do I have it?" Her words hung in the air, heavy with the weight of unsaid truths. Mr. Dragomir's stern expression softened imperceptibly, revealing a flicker of regret, or perhaps a burden of ancient secrets too painful to share lightly. "That is for you, to learn in time," he replied cryptically. "Understand that this pendant is a key that may unlock a destiny beyond anything you have ever imagined." His words were both a warning and an invitation, a challenge that stirred something deep within Lucy. Standing there in the half-light of the fading day, Lucy's heart beat in a chaotic symphony of defiance and wonder. The pendant's glow seemed to pulse in harmony with her own, stirring questions that would not let her rest. Was it a symbol of a new beginning? Or was it a mark of a fate that she could neither escape nor fully embrace? And as she looked into Mr. Dragomir's eyes, a mirror reflecting centuries of untold stories, Lucy knew one immutable truth. Her journey was far from over, and the secrets of the pendant were only the beginning of a destiny laden with both danger and extraordinary promise. Chapter 3. Dawn and the haunted night. Lucy awoke with a start, her eyes snapping open to a weak gray light that seeped through the cracked window. The transition from the haunting darkness of the night to the tentative glow of dawn was jarring, like emerging from a suffocating dream only to find reality equally harsh. Her body felt heavy and disoriented, as though it had been dragged through a night filled with feverish visions and relentless torment. Every muscle ached, every breath came shallow, and the remnants of her nightmare clung to her like an unyielding fog. For hours, Lucy had tossed and turned, tangled in the vestiges of a sleepless night where dreams had danced with phantoms of the past. In these feverish illusions, she had desperately searched for Edric, the one whose presence both comforted and confounded her, only for his image to dissolve like smoke in a gust of wind. Now, as her senses slowly reawakened to the chill of early morning, fragments of those disturbing dreams remained vivid in her mind. The echo of Edric's whispered promises and the fleeting glimpse of his enigmatic silhouette in the moonlight tormented her, mingling with a heavier, more unsettling absence. She pushed herself up, her limbs trembling and her skin still clammy from the residual rush of fear. A sinking dread churned in her stomach. The pendant that had once shone with mysterious allure was nowhere to be found. It had vanished in the chaotic haze of her dreams, leaving her with a haunting void at the very center of her soul. Its loss felt symbolic, as if a crucial link to her destiny had been abruptly severed. With the pendant missing, the luminous connection that had bound her so intimately to the castle's ancient magic and to Edric himself seemed irretrievably lost. Lucy's eyes, still heavy with sleep, scanned the dim, sparse room. Through the window's fractured pane, the early light painted the sky with shifting hues of purples and soft oranges. Despite the beauty of this transformation, a cold detachment lingered within her. Every ray of morning light cut through the lingering shadows of a dream that felt all too real. The silence of the dawn was broken only by the distant sounds of the castle stirring and the faint murmur of voices outside. Her mind, cloudy from the turmoil of the previous night, instinctively reached for answers. She recalled the elusive figures that had haunted her dreams, vague shapes moving in the periphery of moonlit halls, faces that blurred into the darkness, and the echo of a voice urging her to follow, to look closer, to remember. These phantasmal images overlapped with memories of her earlier encounters, intensifying her internal conflict. Was the castle's magic playing tricks on her mind? Or were these visions omens of a deeper mystery yet to unravel? As Lucy rose from the small, creaking bed that had offered her no sanctuary, she felt the raw impact of her emotional ordeal in every step. Her body, though visibly weary and drawn, betrayed no signs of defiance, only a profound exhaustion that seeped into her bones. The memory of her feverish dreams left her feeling simultaneously haunted and hungry for resolution. There was a peculiar emptiness in the way her eyes wandered, as if they were searching for something that lay hidden just beyond her perception. Outside the room, Sophia's gentle, concerned voice broke through Lucy's labyrinth of thoughts. "Lucy, are you all right? You've been quiet all morning," Sophia asked, her tone laced with both tenderness and worry. For a brief moment, Lucy hesitated, caught between the need to confide in her friend and the weight of the secrets that now burdened her heart. Her relationship with Sophia, once buoyed by light-hearted banter and shared laughter, now carried the shadow of unspoken fears and profound isolation. The stark contrast between her own internal chaos and Sophia's attempts at normalcy deepened the chasm between them, even as the bond of friendship urged them to stand together. Taking a deep breath, Lucy replied softly, I'm not. Sure, Sophia. I had a nightmare, one that felt all too real, and now something important feels missing." The admission, halting and raw, carried the weight of her inner despair and the desperate yearning for clarity. Sophia's eyes, filled with empathy, slowly met hers, and in that moment, Lucy knew her unspoken plea reached out to her. But even in that shared tenderness, the unanswered questions loomed large. With the morning sun gradually climbing higher, Lucy felt a stirring determination rising from the depths of her disillusionment. The absence of the pendant, a symbol that had once bound her to an otherworldly fate, now ignited a stubborn resolve within her. She could not dismiss the pull towards the mysteries that had eluded her grasp. Every shadow, every half-heard whisper from the night seemed to insist that Edric, and something profound about her destiny, was slipping further away, into the obscure recesses of the past. In that quiet, fragile dawn, as she gathered her scattered strength, Lucy made a silent vow. She would retrace the bewildering steps of her dreams, confront the unseen forces that had haunted her slumber, and seek out Edric, no matter how elusive or daunting the quest might be. In the soft glow of the awakening day, with every beat of her weary heart echoing the promise of resolve, Lucy understood that her journey had only just begun, and as the castle's ancient walls receded into the shadows of memory, a single, haunting question rang in her mind. Who, or what, awaited her in the labyrinth of the night, and could she ever reclaim the destiny that now lay hidden in the depths of darkness? Chapter 3. Lucy's Solitary Quest. Through the Castle. In the pale light of a late morning, Lucy stepped away from the dwindling comfort of the common areas and found herself alone in the deserted corridors of Blackest Castle. The noise of the departing tour group had faded into a distant murmur, leaving behind only the echo of her own hesitant footsteps. With each measured step, The ancient stone floor seemed to whisper tales of lost time and forgotten passions, taunting her with fleeting memories of Edric, his face half glimpsed in a reflection, his voice lingering in the silence like a half-remembered song. The corridors stretched before her, labyrinthine and unyielding, their walls cloaked in shadows that shifted subtly under the interplay of light and dust. Lucy's breathing slowed as she took deliberate steps forward, each sound a reminder of her isolation. The castle's endless passageways seemed to conspire with her inner turmoil, echoing her doubts and the aching pull of a bond she could neither explain nor dismiss. Every footfall reverberated with the promise of discovery and the threat of an unraveling mystery that she was determined to solve, no matter the cost. Her mind was a storm of conflicting emotions, overwhelming exhaustion tempered by a relentless, if fragile, drive to find Edric. Images of him flitted across her mind's eye, brief, enigmatic flashes along the periphery of her vision, like a specter dancing just out of reach. At times, she could almost see the subtle shift of his silhouette in the dim corridor, only to have it vanish as quickly as it appeared, leaving behind a bitter taste of longing. The castle itself seemed to play tricks on her, draping familiar symbols of its past over its cold, unyielding surfaces, as though it were deliberately tormenting her with reminiscences of a love that still beckoned from the darkness. Despite her physical fatigue, her limbs heavy, her chest tight with the weight of sleepless nights and feverish dreams, Lucy pressed on, compelled by an almost primal need to understand the connection between herself, this haunting place, and the elusive figure of Edric. Each step was a battle between the desire to retreat into the safety of the known and the profound inevitability of destiny that beckoned her deeper into the castle's heart. There was a rhythm in her advance, a quiet cadence punctuated by the soft creak of aged wood and the muted drip of water echoing from unseen corners. It was as if the castle itself were a living testament to her own internal struggle, a silent witness to each moment of despair and every spark of resolute hope. As Lucy wandered further into the maze of forgotten halls, she began to sense a delicate interplay of light and shadow that danced along the walls. Faded tapestries and ancient portraits seemed to shift in her peripheral vision, hinting at stories that were both tragic and redemptive. In one quiet alcove, her tired eyes settled upon a portrait of a long-departed noble, whose eyes mirrored the same unyielding sorrow she felt. In another, a dusty suit of armor, its once bright embellishments dulled by centuries, stood in silent vigil, a guardian of secrets long sealed within the cold stone corridors. Her internal monologue grew quieter, but more insistent with each step. She recalled a time when she had believed love could conquer everything, when the heart's passion could light even the darkest nights. But here, alone in the echoing corridors, her thoughts spun in solitude, balancing on the tightrope between despair and defiant hope. Memories of the vibrant, almost overwhelming presence of Edric in her dreams surged through her mind, mingling with the cold, rhythmic sounds of her footfalls. Every distant, half-remembered echo of his voice was a reminder of a bond that transcended time, yet his presence remained just out of grasp, teasing her from afar. The further she ventured, the more the castle seemed to reveal itself as a silent labyrinth of her own inner uncertainties. Shadows lengthened into shapes that flirted with her senses, and every narrow passage held the potential to lead her either toward the promise of reunion or into the depths of isolation. The cold air carried whispers, uncertain, almost musical hints, that urged her onward, each note a question without an answer. Why does the longing persist? What unseen force drives me deeper into these haunted halls? In that delicate interplay of physical and emotional exhaustion, Lucy realized that her solitary quest was as much about rediscovering herself as it was about tracking down the elusive Edric. There was a kind of beauty in the struggle, a muted, desperate poetry in defying the pull of safety to seek something greater, something ineffable. Her every step, though heavy, was an act of determination, a silent rebellion against the numbness that threatened to engulf her in the familiarity of fear. And so, in the quiet gloom that enveloped her, Lucy moved deeper into the castle's recesses. The corridor ahead promised either a revelation or further mystery. As she rounded a corner shrouded in time-worn draperies, an unresolved urgency seized her, a persistent, unspoken promise that what lay ahead was significant, a critical piece in the puzzle of her destiny. With her heart pounding in a cadence that echoed the ages, Lucy paused, steeling herself to plunge even further into the forgotten halls, determined to uncover the truth that lay hidden in the deep, dark silence of Blackest Castle. Chapter 4. A haunting dream and reawakening. In the stillness of a sleepless night, Lucy drifted between the realms of slumber and wakefulness, caught in a reverie that blurred the boundaries between her deepest desires and darkest fears. The delicate veil of sleep had lifted momentarily, revealing a world painted with surreal hues, a realm where love and loss intertwined in a hauntingly beautiful dance. In this feverish landscape, the memory of Edric appeared as an elusive specter, his form shifting and blurring with each ebb and flow of her consciousness. She found herself wandering a moonlit corridor in her dreams, the familiar stone walls of the castle transforming into a gallery of ethereal memories. Each step echoed softly, as if the very fabric of time were woven with the whispered names of lost souls. In this dreamscape, fragments of Edric's face emerged, his eyes, alight, with an unspoken promise, flickered into view like distant burning stars. At times, his features were both tender and unnerving, a beautiful contradiction that stirred her heart with both longing and apprehension. The dream was soft and lulling, yet imbued with an edge of raw immediacy. As Lucy moved forward, she could sense the warmth of Edric's presence, the fleeting touch of his hand, the gentle murmur of his voice, as if carried on a tender breeze through the corridors of her memory. These moments were interspersed with jarring flashbacks, snippets of their shared laughter, an almost sacred conversation beneath starlight, and the quiet intensity of his gaze that promised both salvation and sorrow. Yet, for every comforting memory, there loomed a pervasive melancholy, a reminder that this vision of him was as transient as the morning mist. Gradually, the soft dream began to wane, slowly merging with the harsh light of reality. Lucy awoke in the cramped confines of her modest cabin, a stark contrast to the fantastical imagery of her nocturnal visions. The cool morning light slanted through the narrow window, casting long shadows that stretched across the worn wooden floor. At first she lay there, ensnared in a delicate uncertainty. The lingering warmth of the dream clung to her skin like dew, and her ears still carried faint echoes of whispered words, fragments of Edric's name carried on the breath of the night. As she sat up, rubbing the remnants of sleep from her eyes, Lucy's gaze drifted to the small table beside her, where a half-empty mug of tea testified to restless hours. The mundane details of the cabin, the creak of the floorboards under her shifting weight, the soft rustle of curtains stirred by the morning breeze, ground her in the present. Yet, amid the simplicity of the surroundings, the vivid images of the dream refused to fade. In the dim light of dawn, those surreal spectral fragments of Edric's presence imprinted themselves on her consciousness, filling her with a bittersweet ache that defied easy explanation. Lucy's thoughts were a fragile tapestry, woven with threads of passion and despair. She recalled the sensation of a cool, almost tangible caress in her sleep, an echo of Edric's touch that had stirred both comfort and dread. His face, as it appeared in fleeting glimpses, seemed to be both a guiding beacon and a haunting reminder of what she had lost. Was it mere fantasy, a nocturnal fabrication born of her grief and longing? Or was there something more, some connection deeper than the boundaries of conscious thought? The ethereal quality of the dream was so disconcerting that Lucy found herself questioning the very nature of her experience. The sensations were real, pulsating through her veins long after the dream had dissipated, yet the vividness of the Castle's ghostly corridors and the warmth of Edric's spectral touch seemed to belong to a realm untouched by time. Outside her window, the world was waking up. A quiet chorus of birds and a gentle breeze. But within Lucy, a storm of questions raged on. What did these visions mean? Was her mind conjuring illusions in the loneliness of the night? Or was the castle itself weaving a tapestry of magic and memory to reach out to her? Her inner voice, though trembling, urged her onward. A subtle but relentless call to seek the truth behind these spectral encounters. As she rose to her feet, determination mingled with fragile uncertainty. The dream had left behind an almost tangible residue of longing, a persistent whisper that hinted at a destiny shrouded in mystery and sorrow. Lucy's heart, still echoing with the soft cadence of Edric's promises, beat with an unspoken vow. She would not let the ephemeral images of her dreams be confined to the dark recesses of sleep. Drawing a deep, steadying breath, Lucy stepped, away from the comforting familiarity of her cabin, and into the awakening light of the day. With every step she took, the gentle glow of dawn intermingled with the deep shadows of her memories, creating a landscape that was as enigmatic as it was real. The castle, even from afar, seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy, a silent, guardian of secrets that beckoned her deeper into the unknown. In that suspended moment, as Lucy prepared to confront the new day with trembling resolve, one lingering question echoed in the quiet chamber of her mind. Was her haunting experience nothing more than a creation of her weary imagination? Or was it a part of a grand, inexorable destiny? A destiny that defied the boundaries between dream and reality, between love and loss? Chapter 4. The Emergence of Edric at the Threshold. At the apex of her solitary quest through the ancient corridors, Lucy reached a vast, arched doorway, bathed in a spectral glow of twilight and lingering mist. The threshold of Blackest Castle seemed to ripple with the weight of legends, and there, silhouetted against a backdrop of swirling shadows and silver light, stood Edric. His presence was nothing short of overwhelming, a vision of both refined humanity and untamed wildness, as though he were carved from the very essence of the old world itself. For a moment, time suspended. Lucy's heartbeat, steady until then, faltered as her eyes locked onto Edric's. He appeared as if emerging from a dream, a figure etched in soft silver and dark onyx. The duality of his nature was palpable. His features, strikingly handsome and refined, were framed by unruly dark hair that cascaded like midnight waves. There was an indomitable strength in the set of his jaw and a gentle vulnerability dancing in the depths of his eyes, a silent promise of passion entwined with peril. The charged silence that hung between them was nearly tangible. It pressed in from all sides, filled with the murmur of forgotten histories and the echo of long-lost oaths. Every element of the scene conspired to halt Lucy's breath. As she stood on that threshold, the cool stone beneath her feet and the soft luminescence of nearby torches faded into irrelevance. All that remained was the magnetism of Edric's presence and the unspoken call of destiny swirling around him like a living mist. Edric's gaze was intense and deliberate, as if he were peering straight into Lucy's very soul. In his eyes, she saw centuries of sorrow and splendor, a silent record of battles fought and passions both fervent and tragic. The air pulsed with an energy that was both dangerous and irresistibly alluring, a force that made the ordinary world outside seem distant and inconsequential. In that heartbeat of stillness, Lucy could almost hear the slow, steady beat of drums marking ancient rituals. The rich cadence of her own pulse became the soundtrack to this fateful moment, echoing in a rhythm that seemed to draw her inexorably closer. In the interplay of light and shadow, he stepped forward. Each stride was measured, powerful, and graceful, like the sweeping arc of a blade poised for a noble cause. The very act of moving seemed to command the forces of nature around him. A sudden gust of wind stirred the dark strands of his hair, and the torchlight flickered as if in tribute to his passage. Lucy's emotions surged within her, a tumult of wonder, fear, and yearning. She struggled to reconcile the conflicting images of Edric, the refined man with a gentle smile, and the wild, almost predatory force that his very presence exuded. Her mind raced as she tried to understand the enigma before her. Was it possible that a single being could embody both the tenderness of a lover and the raw, feral power of a beast? The question seemed to hang unspoken between them, charged with possibilities too profound for simple words. Then, as if in response to her silent query, Edric's expression softened, and his eyes, now brimming with a mix of sorrow and determination, spoke volumes without uttering a word. His hand, calloused yet unmistakably tender, reached out as if to gently take hers. The gesture sent a shiver down Lucy's spine, awakening instincts deep within her, instincts she had long thought buried beneath layers of disbelief and pain. "You have no idea what you are to me," he whispered, his voice low and resonant, the words imbued with an ancient, almost mystical quality that defied the mundane. It was a declaration, an invocation, and a promise all at once, one that rippled through the charged air like a secret incantation. His tone, both commanding and alluring, seemed to suspend the world around them. In that moment, nothing else mattered, but the magnetic pull between them and the deep well of destiny that beckoned from the shadows of the castle. Edric's enigmatic words hung in the space between them, heavy with implication. "Return to where you belong," he added. And with that, a pause, a pregnant silence that teetered on the brink of revelation. His eyes held hers as if challenging her to decipher the meaning buried within his gaze. It was as though he were the keeper of a profound secret, a mystery that threaded through the very fabric of the castle and through the marrow of Lucy's soul. As the silken layers of dusk gave way to the deeper tones of night, Lucy stood transfixed, caught in a moment where vulnerability met power in the most exquisite dance. Her heart pounded with a mixture of trepidation and hope, as if every beat were a clarion call urging her to cross an invisible threshold into a realm of untold truths. In that overwhelmingly charged scene on the castle's threshold, with Edric's gaze locked on hers and the night whispering possibilities into the air, Lucy felt a surge of emotion that was both fierce and fragile. A raw vulnerability interwoven with the undeniable pull of fate. And as the final echoes of his whispered words faded into the night, she was left with an aching question that lingered, unanswered, and potent. What secrets lie in wait for us in the depths of this ancient, haunted castle? And how far am I willing to journey to unlock them? Chapter 4. The intimate bond and conflicted yearnings. In the hushed aftermath of that fateful encounter at the threshold, Lucy found herself ensnared in a quiet intimacy that defied time and reason. Away from the clamor of the departing crowd and the grave insistence of authority, she and Edric stood together in a secluded alcove, an alcove that bore witness to a connection both supernatural and achingly tender. The world around them faded into a soft blur, leaving only the palpable energy of their proximity and the fragile vulnerability that tethered their souls. Edric's gaze softened as he gently reached for Lucy's hand, his touch both reassuring and electric. As his fingers brushed delicately over the small pendant that once adorned her neck, a relic that had mysteriously reappeared and then vanished in the chaos of recent events, she felt an indescribable pull. In that fleeting moment, her skin hummed with sensation, as though the pendant's ghostly memory still resonated within her. His hand, warm yet imbued with a certain cool resolve, caressed her arm, sending ripples of quiet longing through her heart. Every subtle touch, every soft glance exchanged between them, whispered of memories not bound by a single lifetime, but scattered across the infinite tapestry of time. They stood in a silence that was broken only by the soft murmur of their breaths and the distant echo of the castle's ancient heartbeat. In that suspended quiet, Edric's voice emerged in a hushed tone. "Lucy, It's as if we were always meant to find one another. The words, delicate and heavy with meaning, unfurled like a long-forgotten lullaby, one that recalled forgotten encounters in lives past, where love transcended mortal constraints and bled into the very essence of destiny. His statement was both a promise and a plea, stirring within her an unspoken hope mingled with a wary trepidation. Lucy's own voice trembled as she responded, "I feel it too. This inexplicable pull, a bond that I can neither define nor deny." Her admission carried an echo of ancient longing, reverberating within the quiet chamber of her heart. Together, they lingered in that profound communion, their silent exchange speaking of tender gestures and bittersweet memories. Lucy's fingers instinctively traced the delicate curve of Edric's pendant, a crescent of silver once imbued with an unknown magic, drawing invisible patterns that seemed to map the contours of a past life where their souls might have danced. In unison, each gentle stroke ignited a cascade of fleeting images. A warm embrace under a canopy of starlight, whispered promises against the hush of midnight, and the soft echo of laughter shared in realms of innocence long lost. Yet, amid the tender beauty of their connection, a shadow loomed, an omnipresent reminder of the dangers that lay intertwined with their union. The same aura of destiny that drew them together also bore the weight of ancient prophecies and curses yet unbroken. In the quiet, intimate space between them, a storm of conflicted yearnings surged beneath the surface. Lucy's heart, already fragile from the wounds of the past, now trembled with both desire and a deep-seated fear. Every caress, every whispered word was shadowed by the knowledge that their love might be as perilous as it was profound. Edric, sensing the inner tempest that clouded her eyes, gently pressed a hand against her cheek, a gesture so soft it might have been a benediction or a warning. "This bond we share," he murmured, his tone both mournful and determined, "is not free from the specter of fate. Love, for all its beauty, carries with it a price." His words were like a bittersweet refrain, underscoring the duality of their passion, its capacity to heal, as well as its potential to destroy. Lucy's gaze dropped to her trembling hands and she whispered, "Can we truly defy fate? Is our love strong enough to overcome the darkness that threatens to claim us?" Her voice was a fragile thread, quivering in the expansive silence that followed. She remembered the burning intensity in Edric's eyes, the unspoken anguish in the lines of his face, and the way his touch lingered as if desperately trying to hold on to something ephemeral. Every tender gesture was intertwined with the looming peril, a reminder that every moment of bliss came at the risk of inevitable loss. In that delicate interplay of hope and fear, their hearts beat in a rhythm that spoke of promises, forged in both joy and sorrow. As the first light of dawn crept through the narrow window, casting soft, shifting shadows across the ancient stones, Lucy felt a renewed surge of determination amid her internal conflict. The beauty of their union was undeniable, yet the specter of fate cast a long, foreboding shadow over their future. In a voice barely above a whisper, as if sharing a secret meant only for the ethereal spaces between heartbeats, Edric posed a question that reverberated in the silence. "Lucy, do you believe that love can conquer even the darkest of destinies?" The question hung in the charged air, a single, poignant echo that encapsulated every tender promise and every harrowing risk of their union. As their eyes met once more, the uncertain light of dawn mingled with the fading remnants of night, and Lucy felt her resolve strengthen even as her heart quivered with doubt. In that suspended moment, caught between the promise of intimate passion and the inescapable threat of an ancient curse, the two souls dared to believe in the possibility of redemption through love. And as they stood there, wrapped in the enigmatic bond that defied explanation, a silent pause fell between them, a pause laden with the unspoken question that would define the course of their fate. Can love truly overcome the specter of fate and danger? Chapter 5. The Tragic Aftermath and the Unfolding Mystery. The silence that had once cloaked Blackest Castle was shattered by a macabre discovery. As twilight deepened into a grim, oppressive dusk, a somber commotion rose from the castle's lower courtyard. Lucy, her heart still reeling from the heady mix of dreams and half-remembered whispers, caught sight of a sight that turned her blood icy. Mr. Dragomir, the enigmatic keeper of these ancient stones, lay sprawled on the cold, unforgiving ground, a lifeless body that bore the unmistakable markings of a violent unraveling. Law enforcement had arrived swiftly, their presence harsh against the languid, haunted ambiance of the castle. Uniformed officers, faces grim and voices subdued, converged on the scene with meticulous urgency. They moved with a precision that belied the underlying horror of what they were about to uncover. In the midst of the frantic activity, Lucy could scarcely comprehend the blend of formal protocol and raw, visceral despair that now pervaded the castle's atmosphere. Her eyes were drawn first to the cold, still figure of Mr. Dragomir. The body, pale and contorted in an unnatural repose, lay as a stark contrast against the centuries-old stones. His once formidable presence was reduced to a tragic emptiness, and the details were both chilling and disturbing. His clothes, disheveled and muddied, clung loosely to a frame that no longer breathed. His face was frozen in a final, silent scream. The scene was horrifying in its simplicity, a direct, unadorned testament to mortality and the cruel interruptions of fate. The officers began their examination with a clinical detachment that only deepened the macabre quality of the scene. One detective knelt beside Dragomir's body, carefully checking vital signs that were long extinguished. His gloved hands moved methodically, noting every bruise, every unnatural angle of the neck, a broken detail that suggested an abrupt, violent end. The surrounding chaos was punctuated by hushed discussions and the shuffling of evidence bags, each sound a solemn counterpoint to Dragomir's silent story. Lucy, hidden in the periphery of this unfolding investigation, was gripped by a maelstrom of conflicted thoughts. The sight of Dragomir's lifeless form forced her to confront a collision of past and present, a paradox where the familiar custodian of the castle now lay as an ominous symbol of neglect and possibly of supernatural retribution. Memories of his stern guidance, the heavy yet protectively warm aura he once exuded, clashed violently with the grim reality before her. His body, a vessel for unspoken legends, had become yet another tragic relic in a place where time seemed to waver, between myth and nightmare. Lucy's mind churned with questions that blurred together. What malevolent force had wrought this calamity? Was his demise merely a tragic accident in a castle steeped in history, or did it signal a deeper, darker shift in the ancient energies that pulsed through these walls? Each step she took, every hushed whisper from the investigators, added a layer to the enigma that now enshrouded her. In the midst of the official detachment, she could feel a subtle, pulsating vibration, a reminder that beyond the tangible horror, something spectral stirred in the shadows. Even as officers cordoned off the area and secured the scene, an uneasy disquiet seemed to seep from the very stones of Blackest Castle. The ancient walls, long silent and impassive, now resonated with an inexplicable, throbbing undercurrent, as if the castle itself mourned the loss of its venerable guardian. Lucy's pulse quickened, echoing the desperation of the investigator's quiet urgency and her own internal alarm. Every detail, every grim finding, only deepened the mystery of Dragomir's death and the ominous forces at play. In her isolation, Lucy's thoughts grew feverish with both dread and a morbid curiosity. She recalled the subtle omens that had preceded this tragic moment, the soft, inexplicable whispers in the corridors, the uncanny reappearance of objects like the pendant and the mysterious doll, and the fleeting, ghostly figures that had drifted at the edge of her vision. The convergence of these elements formed a tapestry of foreboding, a suggestion that forces beyond mortal understanding were influencing the castle, and perhaps entwining themselves with the fates of those who dared to dwell within its ancient embrace. As the night deepened, the castle's atmosphere became heavier still. The clinical investigations offered little solace, merely cataloging the physical evidence of a life abruptly ended. Yet, in the silence that followed each measured step of the officers, Lucy sensed a more insidious presence, a dark energy that was both an ancient curse and a malignant force woven into the fabric of the castle itself. The tragedy of Dragomir's passing was not an isolated accident. It was a harbinger, an ominous sign that the supernatural currents within these walls were rising once more. Standing amidst the chaos, Lucy felt an intensifying call to uncover the truth behind this grim spectacle. The clash between the immediate, stark reality of law enforcement and the ethereal, haunting presence that filled the castle tormented her. A relentless reminder that within every tragedy, the unseen forces of fate were at work. Her own heart pounded with a mixture of sorrow and defiance, fueled by a burgeoning resolve to follow the trail of clues that the castle had silently laid before her. Even as the scene around her grew more chaotic and the officers continued their meticulous work, Lucy's mind buzzed with a singular burning question. Was Dragomir's tragic end the price of a deeper, mystical retribution lurking within these walls? The idea gnawed at her, an unsettling whisper in a realm where death, destiny, and dark, magic converged. As she pressed her hand against the cool stone of the corridor wall, Lucy vowed to delve deeper into the mysteries that now, more than ever, demanded to be revealed. Chapter 6. The Call to Darkness and the Boundary of Safety. In the still, quiet hours of the night, Lucy found herself struggling against a tide of exhaustion and an irresistible pull that drove her back to the castle. Every step she took felt both deliberate and desperate, a slow, painful march through shadowed memories and whispered regrets. It was as if her body and soul were locked in a battle between preservation and the alluring call of a darkness that promised both torment and deliverance. Her mind was a confessional diary of unrest. In the silence of her small room, where the faint hum of nighttime insects intermingled with the distant, murmur-like strains of wind against ancient stone, Lucy's thoughts tumbled in a low, almost whispered cadence. Why do I keep returning to this cursed place? She would silently ask herself, the question repeated like a mantra in the dim light that filtered through her tattered curtains. The boundary between safety and peril had become indistinct. What had once been a refuge now beckoned her with the dangerous lure of fate. The castle, with its spectral corridors and hidden memories, seemed to have etched itself onto her very being, murmuring promises of reunion with Edric, even as her rational mind urged her to retreat. Outside, the night was both gentle and formidable. Distant crickets provided a soft, rhythmic backdrop, a lullaby of nature that offered a fragile comfort. Yet, intertwined with these delicate sounds were harsher, more jarring notes. A sudden gust rattling the window pane, the creak of old wood, under the strain of shifting weather, that echoed the disintegration of her defenses. Each noise, every creak of the floor beneath her tired feet, reminded Lucy that her strength was waning, that the night itself conspired to erode the fortress of reason she had built around her heart. Treading lightly over uneven cobblestones, Lucy's inner monologue was raw and unfiltered. Every time I close my eyes, I see him, Edric, standing at the threshold of my dreams, a beacon of both salvation and sorrow. Yet when I wake, I am alone, my body aching, my spirit trembling in the cold breath of reality. Her heart pounded, with a rhythm that was both hopeful and harrowing, as if each beat were a countdown to a reunion that might never come. There was a profound irony in her journey, seeking the safety of familiarity, even as that very place, the castle, had turned into a trap of dark enchantment. The further she walked, the more the boundaries of her fragile defenses began to crumble. The physical weariness was matched by an emotional erosion. Every step was a surrender. Every exhalation an admission of how close she was to losing herself in the abyss of her own longing. The soft luminescence of the moon caressed the ancient walls, turning the stones into silhouettes that seemed to whisper her secrets. Shadows lengthened and twisted, dancing at the periphery of her vision, blending reality with the spectral echoes of past dreams, a dissonant symphony that left her both mesmerized and terrified. As Lucy reached a narrow, winding passage that led deeper into the castle's heart, her internal turmoil reached its zenith. The familiar safety of her earlier days, when she had clung to the promise of light, now appeared as a barren illusion. The castle's allure had become a siren call, its dark corridors promising the chance to confront not only the ghosts of her past, but also the enigmatic presence of Edric. Can I resist the pull any longer? She wondered in a tremulous whisper. With each step deeper into the labyrinth, her mind swam with conflicting images. The soft, uncertain warmth of shared memories with Edric interspersed with the cold, relentless reality of her isolation. Chapadu, air around her thickened with every footfall, filled with the scent of damp earth and ancient stone. A potent reminder that history, with all its beauty and pain, was very much a part of her present. Lucy's heart ached with the weight of unresolved yearnings and the echoes of love lost to time. Her breathing became shallow, as if each inhalation was an act of defiance against the overwhelming pull of darkness that threatened to consume her. In that crushing solitude, she confronted the paradox of her situation. Every instinct urged her to flee the dangerous, seductive grasp of the castle, yet the same irresistible magnetism compelled her to stay. The allure of hidden secrets and the prospect of reuniting with Edric gnawed at her, an eternal flame ignited by both desire and despair. Her inner voice pleaded with her to heed caution, to recall the countless warnings of those who had walked these haunted halls before, but in the silent spaces between her thoughts, a more desperate, almost primal call insisted that her destiny lay here, in the depths of this enigmatic fortress. Standing at the brink of one shadow-cloaked corridor, Lucy closed her eyes for a moment, gathering the last vestiges of her strength and resolve. In a voice that trembled with both vulnerability and defiant hope, she whispered into the darkness, "Edric, if you're out there, if any part of you still waits for me, please, show yourself, guide me back to you." The plea was soft and almost lost amid the ancient whispers of stone and wind, yet it carried with it the full weight of her heart's longing. In that quiet, desperate invocation, the boundaries between safety and danger blurred into a singular, overwhelming truth, that the call to darkness was not a threat to be resisted, but a destiny to be embraced, no matter how perilous it might be. Chapter 6. The Reunion and the Unbreakable Bond. Deep within the labyrinthine corridors of Blackest Castle, where shadows tangled with flickering light, and every step held the echo of ancient secrets, Lucy's weary heart pounded with a desperate hope. After what felt like endless wandering through twisting passageways and forgotten halls, she finally found herself standing before a grand, arched chamber. The air was thick with anticipation, as if the very walls vibrated with the promise of destiny fulfilled. And there, bathed in the soft, otherworldly glow of midnight that filtered through stained glass, stood Edric. The moment was breathtaking in its raw intensity. Edric, emerging as if conjured by Lucy's yearning, was more striking than she could ever have imagined. His presence was a fusion of tenderness and wild, untamed power. His dark eyes, brimming with conflicted emotion, met hers with a gaze that seemed to see through every layer of pain and longing. In that instant, the relentless journey, the loneliness of endless corridors, and the bitter weight of nights spent in restless search melted away. All that remained was the undeniable force that drew their souls together, a magnetism born of fate, forged in the fires of past lives, and unyielding in its promise of eternal union. Edric stepped forward with deliberate grace, his footsteps echoing softly on the cold stone floor. With each movement, he exuded a gentle power that belied the inner turmoil he carried. Lucy's eyes filled with a mix of awe and relief, a longing finally answered after so many agonizing hours of solitude. Without preamble, he reached out to her, his hand trembling ever so slightly as it brushed away the tears that had accumulated in her eyes. His touch was both soothing and electrifying, a caress that whispered of both healing and the scars borne by a life steeped in mystery and loss. They embraced, and in that tender moment, time itself seemed to pause. Lucy felt the pulsating warmth of his embrace, a palpable surge of energy that bridged the gulf between two souls forever intertwined by destiny. His arms encircled her gently, yet held a firmness that spoke of an unbreakable resolve. In his embrace, Lucy experienced a stirring of emotions so profound that it was as if every heartbeat of hers was synchronized with his, a union beyond mere physicality, transcending mortality and the ravages of time. Amid the quiet symphony of their reunion, whispered memories of long-forgotten promises surfaced. Edric's low voice, resonant and tender, murmured, "I have waited through the endless nights, through storms and silence for this moment, to feel your heartbeat once more, to know that nothing in this world, not even death, could sever the bond we share." His words were a sacred incantation, their power stirring echoes of ancient lore and a love that defied the relentless march of fate. Lucy's heart swelled with a mingling of joy and trepidation. Though his embrace was tender, there remained in his eyes a trace of sorrow, a reflection of battles fought within, of sacrifices made in the name of a love that was as volatile as it was pure. In that shared vulnerability, Lucy sensed the weight of challenges that still lay ahead. Their connection, as unyielding as it was miraculous, was not free from the scars of the past. But in that moment, encased in the quiet intensity of their reunion, it was clear that their souls had found a refuge within one another, an unspoken promise that fate had bound them together through adversity and across lifetimes. Slowly, as the initial surge of passion began to ebb into a gentle lull, Lucy and Edric separated just enough to meet each other's gaze. The space between them was charged with unspoken questions, the question of what had truly brought them together, and what dark forces might yet conspire to challenge their unity. In the soft flicker of torchlight, their expressions revealed both the profound certainty of their bond and a lingering uncertainty, a silent acknowledgement that despite the overwhelming joy of reunion, the road ahead was fraught with peril. Edric's eyes, dark and infinite, swept over the ancient chamber as if seeking to divine the hidden currents of destiny. His voice, when he spoke again, was low and resolute. "Our love has been written in the echoes of eternity, Lucy, yet it is not without its tribulations. There will be trials yet to come, shadows that will seek to tear us asunder, forces that will challenge what we have so dearly reclaimed." His words, both a promise and a forewarning, lingered in the charged silence between them. Lucy reached up, her hand brushing softly against his cheek, feeling the calluses of a man who had borne the weight of centuries. "Then let us face those trials together," she whispered, the tremor in her voice belying both her fear and her fierce determination. In the meeting of their eyes, there was a silent pact, an affirmation that their union was a defiant act against a destiny that sought to keep them apart. As the night deepened around them, the echoes of their shared embrace began to wane into a tentative calm. But even in that quiet, the future loomed ambiguously, a vast and uncertain horizon where the light of their unbreakable bond would be tested against forces unseen. In the fading glow of that surreal chamber, Lucy's heart still throbbed with the intensity of a love that knew no bounds. Yet, beneath that passion lay a subtle, inescapable question. Would the challenges that lay ahead prove insurmountable? Or could they truly forge a destiny where nothing, not even death, could tear them apart? Chapter 7. The Aftermath of the Reunion and Lingering Nightmares. Lucy awoke with a start, the remnants of her haunting dream clinging to her like tendrils of mist. In the quiet pre-dawn stillness of the cabin, the memories of Edric, or perhaps the echoes of a love once shared, seeped into her consciousness with a melancholy persistence. For a moment, she lay there, disoriented, as the boundary between sleep and wakefulness blurred into an unyielding haze of emotion and sensory detail. Her heart pounded softly in her ears, a languid rhythm that seemed to match the fading cadence of the dream. In that vivid nightmare, she had seen Edric not merely as the enigmatic guardian of her heart, but as the embodiment of all their past tragedies and triumphs, a spectral dance of intimacy and longing that had left her both raw and reassured. Now, as reality slowly took shape around her, the dream's spectral images still shimmered at the edge of her vision, like fragments of an old, bittersweet melody echoing through the corridors of her mind. Rubbing her eyes and attempting to gather her scattered senses, Lucy became acutely aware of a peculiar sensation at her throat. Where the pendant had once rested, a faint, pulsating glow still seemed to radiate from beneath her skin. The cool warmth of its memory pressed against her, a silent reminder that the forces of the night lingered, even in the clear light of day. Each pulsation echoed with an almost hypnotic rhythm, synchronizing with her own heartbeat and evoking the ghostly intimacy of a night steeped in mystery. As she sat up, the room around her came into sharp focus. The modest cabin, with its worn, wooden furniture and gently swaying curtains, seemed both a sanctuary and a prison. A small haven where she could only partially escape the enigmatic pull of the castle and the stirring presence of Edric. Outside the window, the world was beginning to wake. Pale light crept over the horizon, painting the sky with soft, muted hues that belied the tumultuous night she had just endured. Yet, Lucy could not shake the profound sense of loss and wonder that clung to her spirit. Her mind swirled with vivid impressions of the dream. There had been moments of transcendent connection, a whisper of laughter, the tender press of Edric's hand, and even bursts of searing passion that left her breathless. Yet, these images were interlaced with unsettling darkness, faces obscured by shadows, the overwhelming certainty of fated loss, and a pervasive sense of foreboding that hinted at challenges yet to come. The dream had reshaped her understanding of love. It was not merely a gentle refuge, but a powerful, multifaceted force, capable of both healing and destruction. In the cool morning solitude, Lucy's thoughts turned inward. What is the nature of this bond that pulls me so inexorably toward danger? She wondered, her inner voice quiet yet insistent. The emotional aftershocks of her reunion with Edric, and the subsequent almost surreal dream that had consumed her, had dismantled the simple notions of romance she once clung to. Love, as she now perceived it, was layered with peril and beauty, a force that could elevate the spirit while also tearing it apart. The shimmering pendant against her skin was a tangible reminder of this paradox, a relic that pulsed with the energy of a destiny that was both predestined and perilous. Even as the day's light grew stronger, Lucy could not dispel the lingering shadows of the night. Every subtle sound, the creak of the cabin floor, the soft rustle of the wind against the window, seemed to echo with the distant, ghostly cadence of Edric's presence. A part of her clung to the hope that these nightmares were not merely figments of her troubled sleep, but prophecies of what was to come. Yet another part of her feared that they were merely the raw outpouring of memories, long suppressed, fragments of a past life merging with her present grief. Lucy moved to the small mirror on her bedside table, studying her own eyes. There, between the dark circles of fatigue and the glimmer of unshed tears, she saw not weakness but a fierce, defiant spark. It was the look of someone who had faced the abyss and returned, determined to uncover the truth behind the eerie tapestry that now wove itself into her destiny. The emotional ache that had taken root in her heart was not solely a reminder of loss, but also of an unspoken promise, a call to delve deeper, to seek out answers in the hidden recesses of the past and the present intertwined. The unanswered questions swirled relentlessly in her mind. Are these nightmares visions of a fated future, or mere echoes of a forgotten past. The mystery of her experience was as alluring as it was frightening, leaving Lucy to wonder if the castle's dark magic was weaving illusions or if it was imparting a prophetic truth too vast to grasp. In the quiet aftermath of the night's terrors, Lucy vowed to honor the enigmatic call that had drawn her here. With a trembling hand, she touched the spot where the pendant's memory still pulsed, feeling a connection so profound that it transcended the limitations of time and space. As the soft light of dawn began to chase away the shadows of the night, her heart whispered a promise into the still air. A promise to seek out the truth behind the visions, and to confront the mystery that danced tantalizingly at the edge of her consciousness. And so, with a mind filled with both cautious resolve and lingering questions, Lucy embarked on a journey inward, a quest to determine whether the nightmares that haunted her were prophetic omens of what lay ahead, or simply the shattered remnants of love and loss echoing through her soul. Chapter 8: A Parallel Realm Revealed. In the still charged atmosphere of Blackest Castle, Lucy discovered that her journey was only beginning. As she stepped gingerly toward a hidden archway that pulsed with an uncanny, otherworldly light, the very air around her seemed to shimmer. The ancient portal, once a mere passageway between forgotten corridors, now opened into a realm that defied the familiar, a surreal landscape bathed in luminous radiance and steeped in myth. Gone were the oppressive, shadowed halls of the castle she had known. In their place, Lucy found herself immersed in gleaming corridors lined with polished marble that caught the light of countless floating candles. These orbs of gentle flame drifted through the air like enchanted fireflies, their soft illumination painting delicate, dancing patterns upon walls adorned with vibrant tapestries. The tapestries, rich with the history of a bygone era, depicted majestic scenes of ancient, fabled wolves, regal creatures whose eyes glowed with wisdom and power. Their images seemed to move imperceptibly, as if alive, conveying tales of valor, tragedy, and the eternal cycle of life and rebirth. Every detail of this alternate reality was meticulously wrought with a sense of purpose and splendor. The air here was fragrant with a heady mixture of incense and wildflowers, a sharp contrast to the damp, musty smell of the old castle. Soft, harmonious music, as though from an unseen choir, carried across the vast expanse of the corridor, imbuing the space with an enchanting serenity. Lucy's footsteps echoed along the polished floor in a gentle cadence, each step a deliberate beat in an otherworldly symphony that called her deeper into the realm. As Lucy advanced, the heavy weight of her earlier burdens began to lift, replaced by a cautious wonder. The very walls of this luminous realm appeared to breathe, their textures smooth and inviting, whispering ancient secrets to those who dared to listen. Carved in delicate relief on the arches and columns were symbols and motifs that spoke of destiny and eternal love, the same themes that had haunted her dreams and ignited her quest. It was as if the castle had been reborn here in a magical form, where every element was purposefully designed to weave together the threads of fate, memory, and aspiration. In the soft glow of this alternate world, Lucy felt a stirring of recognition. Figures robed in opulent fabrics, their faces obscured by intricately patterned veils, began to emerge from the shadows. They moved with a graceful, almost hypnotic precision, their presence dignified and otherworldly. One by one, they greeted her with quiet reverence, their eyes reflecting an unspoken promise that she was no longer a mere wanderer of forgotten halls, but a cherished returning queen. With each respectful nod and gentle smile, Lucy sensed that her journey had led her to a pivotal, transformative moment, one where the veil between the mundane and the magical had been irrevocably lifted. A regal figure, distinct from the others, approached her with deliberate grace. Draped in a flowing cloak of deep midnight blue, this mysterious entity extended a hand in welcome. "Welcome home, Lucy," the figure intoned softly, the voice resonating with both authority and compassion. In that singular moment, Lucy felt her heart swell with a bittersweet mixture of relief and awe. Here, in this parallel realm, The weight of her past heartaches and the relentless pursuit of her destiny converged into one luminous truth. She was meant to be here, destined to unravel the secrets that had eluded her in the darkened corridors of the old castle. The luminous hall seemed to pulse in time with her rising emotions, each heartbeat a note in an evolving symphony of hope and promise. As the figures guided her along a pathway of glistening stone and silvery light, Lucy's senses were overwhelmed by an exquisite tapestry of sights and sounds. Every soft murmur, every sparkle of candlelight, every subtle shift in the air spoke to her of an ancient legacy long forgotten by the world beyond these enchanted walls. Gradually, as Lucy traversed deeper into the grandeur of this transformed domain, a sense of calm and acceptance began to bloom within her. The relentless fear and uncertainty that had plagued her restless nights began to yield to the gentle assurance of a destiny reawakened. Memories of pain and betrayal receded, replaced by the promise of renewal, a chance to reclaim a part of herself that had been scattered by the shadows of her former life. And yet, even as a delicate serenity settled upon her, an undercurrent of mystery remained in the very fabric of this luminous realm. Lucy could not shake the lingering question that danced on the edge of her consciousness. What other secrets lie hidden in the depths of this enchanted castle? What ancient truths have been waiting, in patient silence, for a soul brave enough to seek them out? With her heart both light and heavy with the burden of newfound destiny, Lucy paused at the threshold of a grand hall adorned with towering pillars and intricate mosaics that depicted celestial events and mythic adventures. In that moment, she felt an unspoken invitation, a promise of further revelations to come. The path ahead beckoned her, shimmering with the allure of untold mysteries and the potential of a destiny yet to be fully embraced. As the gentle cadence of the enchanted realm pulsed around her, Lucy vowed inwardly to unravel these mysteries, to peel back the layers of time and magic that clung to this place like the morning dew on ancient petals. In that luminous twilight between past and future, she sensed that her destiny was intricately intertwined with the secrets of this parallel realm, a destiny that promised both unfathomable challenges and the possibility of a love that transcended the limits of mortal existence. And so, with an air of quiet determination and a heart stirred by both wonder and uncertainty, Lucy stepped forward into the unknown, inviting the mysteries of this transformed castle to reveal themselves bit by tantalizing bit. Chapter 8. The Coronation of the Alpha King. The hall erupted into a hushed, reverent awe as Lucy beheld the culmination of a destiny long foretold. Amidst a mystical assembly of spectral figures and cloaked guardians, the ancient throne room of Blackest Castle emerged like a stage set for legends. The once dormant corridors now shimmered under radiant, enchanted light, and at the very heart of the assembly stood Edric, once a solitary wanderer in the dark, and now transformed into the Alpha King. As the assembled throng parted in silent deference, the atmosphere seemed to pulse with the weight of centuries. The air was thick with incense, and the murmurs of ancient incantations, every heartbeat of the crowd echoing the deep, primordial rhythm of the land. A luminous glow spilled from ornate braziers and delicate floating candles, casting shifting patterns that danced across intricately carved stone and time-worn tapestries depicting wolf legends and age-old battles. Lucy's breath caught as she watched Edric step forward with regal authority. In that moment, he embodied a mesmerizing duality, the raw, untamed presence of a wolf with eyes that burned like embers in the twilight, yet tempered by the gentle vulnerability of a man who had experienced immeasurable sorrow. His form shifted, fluidly before her eyes, a transformation both mystical and deeply human. Where once his features had been wild and feral, now they softened into the refined, chiseled lines of noble countenance. In his eyes, the fierce determination of a beast melded seamlessly with the tenderness of a lover, as if the scars of battles past had been healed by an unbreakable promise. Driven by an irresistible gravitational pull, Lucy moved forward, her steps unbidden and awash with emotion. As she neared, the throng bowed their heads in silent reverence, creating an open path toward the elevated dais where Edric now stood, crowned by flickering torches and the glow of enchanted light. The moment was profound. Every heartbeat, every breath resonated with the power of transformation and the inevitability of fate fulfilled. Unable to resist the overwhelming surge of emotion, Lucy sank to her knees before him. The cool marble beneath her hands felt like the very pulse of the ancient castle, both steady and eternal. In that act of surrender, she did not yield in defeat, but embraced the sacred union of two souls bound by destiny. Tears, unbidden yet cathartic, mingled with quiet smiles as her eyes searched his, seeking answers in the depths of that enigmatic gaze. In the intensity of the moment, the world beyond the throne room faded into an indistinct murmur. All that remained was the shared, incandescent bond between them, a bond that had transcended darkness and defied all mortal constraints. The transformation of Edric was a marvel in itself. Moments before, he had been the untamed guardian of lost dreams. Now he stood as a beacon of both dark power and fragile humanity, his royal vestments mingling with the visceral energy of his former self. The transition was fluid, like the rippling of water under moonlight, a seamless melding of beastly grace and the dignified aura of a sovereign reborn. His every gesture was imbued with an undeniable presence, commanding the assembly's attention and affirming that fate had chosen him, not just to rule, but to restore a legacy forged in love, sacrifice, and defiance against the ceaseless march of time. As Lucy remained on her knees, her heart swelling with every silent promise etched in the air, the Alpha King slowly extended his hand toward her. It was a gesture both tender and filled with a quiet authority, a benediction to her unwavering spirit, and an invitation to join him in the realms of the mystical and the eternal. "My queen," he murmured, his voice a rich tapestry woven of both commanding resonance and soft, almost plaintive emotion. "You have returned to me, as destiny decreed, and with you, I reclaim not only my rightful crown, but the very promise of our love, unbroken by the ravages of time or the cruelty of fate." In that enchanted instant, as the assembly watched with eyes that held the wisdom of ages, Lucy felt every past sorrow, every moment of despair, dissolve into the luminous promise of their reunion. The seductive allure of his touch, the profound connection in his gaze, and the quiet majesty of the throne room converged to form a singular, transcendent truth. That love, however fraught with danger and tempered by loss, could indeed surmount even the starkest voids of darkness. Yet, as the echoes of his whispered vow reverberated softly through the ancient stone, a silent question lingered, a quiet, almost imperceptible note of melancholy amid the jubilant clamor. What would be the cost of such unyielding power? The shadows around them, long and enigmatic, seemed to hint at challenges yet to come, at a future where every ounce of their renewed strength might be tested against forces both seen and unseen. And in that stirring moment of coronation, as the Alpha King and his returning queen embraced their destiny, the very air trembled with the promise of epic trials and the unspoken mystery of love's enduring might. With the flicker of candlelight and the murmuring echoes of the past, their union shimmered like an incandescent beacon in the night, a union that would not only defy death, but would also demand sacrifices from both their souls, leaving the audience to ponder the true cost of power and the depth of the bond that had been so fatefully reborn. Chapter 9. The Price of the Bond and the Uncertain Future. In the fragile stillness that followed their exalted reunion, the echoes of celebration gradually gave way to a heavy, unyielding silence. The luminous glow that had once heralded a new beginning now cast long shadows upon Lucy's weary face. In the immediate aftermath, as the revelry of the Alpha King's coronation faded into memory, Lucy found herself grappling with the unforeseen cost of the bond that now tethered her to Edric. Every heartbeat throbbed with both the remnants of ecstatic reunion and the creeping dread of an inner drain. Edric's return had not come without consequences. Over the following hours, Lucy began to sense the toll of their union in subtle, yet insistent ways. The once soft warmth of his touch, now cemented in memory, had left a residue that shimmered at the edges of her awareness, a cold pulse that threatened to sap her strength. As the morning advanced, Lucy's limbs felt heavy as if weighed down by invisible chains. A sharp chill crept along her skin, and she could almost hear the slow, rhythmic drain of energy that seemed to echo the fading heartbeat of an ancient force. In the quiet corridor of the transformed castle, Lucy paused beside a long, arched window that offered a view of a brooding sky. Her reflection, pale and drawn, met her gaze with unspoken questions. "Edric," she murmured into the empty space, her voice raw with inner turmoil. "What price have we truly paid for this bond?" The words were a confession, a plea for clarity in a moment when love and danger entwined too tightly for comfort. Her thoughts churned with conflicting emotions. On one hand, the bond between her and Edric felt predestined, an eternal connection that defied both time and death. Yet, it was also a burden, an insidious force that seemed to drain the very essence of her being with every passing moment. Memories of their passionate reunion were now interlaced with haunting sensations, a slight numbness in her fingertips, a persistent weakness that clouded her vision, and an ever-present echo of Edric's supernatural energy pulsing just beneath her skin. Later that day, Lucy sought solace in the modest privacy of the chamber where she had once found refuge. The gentle hum of the castle's magical energy vibrated in the background like a distant drum, punctuating the silence with a constant reminder of the cost of their union. As she sat upon a worn wooden bench, she attempted to summon Edric's comforting presence in her thoughts. Instead, she recalled the stark warnings whispered by those who had once known the dark truths of such potent magic. "Love like ours," one voice had once warned, "may defy death, but it can come at a price too high to bear." Her inner voice grew louder in the quiet of that lonely space. Is this the inevitable consequence of a bond forged in the fires of destiny? Lucy wondered bitterly, her eyes misting over as pain and doubt mingled with residual hope. Every pulsation of the mysterious pendant that had once glowed with enigmatic promise now felt like a siphon, quietly, yet inexorably, drawing from her life force. The magic that had bonded her to Edric was perilous, and its draining effect was a constant, almost silent predator lurking at the edges of her consciousness. In a hushed conversation that broke the solitude, Sophia entered the chamber. Her soft concern was evident as she gently placed a hand on Lucy's shoulder. "You look exhausted, Lucy," she said, her voice laden with worry and quiet urgency. "Is it the bond? Do you feel it draining you?" Lucy's eyes met her friend's, and the unspoken truth wavered between them. "It's more than exhaustion," Lucy confessed, her tone pained yet resolute. "Every part of me feels weakened, as if something essential is slipping away with every beat of my heart. I love him, but at what cost?" Her words hung in the air, a lament for a bond that had promised eternal connection, yet demanded too steep a price. Sophia frowned, her gaze darkening with concern. "We must be cautious, Lucy. There is power in love, but unchecked, it can become destructive. I fear that what we share might tear you apart if we do not understand its limits." The conversation lingered, heavy with the burden of impending confrontation. The room filled with the palpable tension of souls caught between the promise of transcendent love and the peril of its potential decay. Lucy's internal battle raged silently, each moment of passion intertwined with an undercurrent of doubt. Her heart clung to hope, yet she could not shake the niggling fear that the supernatural forces binding her to Edric might one day extinguish the light of her life. Outside, The castle's corridors whispered of ancient conflicts and unspoken prophecies. The very stones seemed to murmur warnings, as though the fates had already been set in motion. In that charged atmosphere, Lucy felt an overwhelming urgency to confront the uncertainty that loomed ahead. The future was a tapestry of promising light and encroaching darkness, and her tenuous bond with Edric would be challenged by forces both internal and external, forces that could either forge their love into something unbreakable or shatter it beyond repair. As dusk fell and the castle's magic deepened, Lucy, with a trembling resolve, vowed to uncover the truth behind the cost of their bond. In a whisper of defiance, she murmured into the gathering darkness, "If our love is destined to defy fate, then I must know. Will it be enough to sustain us against the forces that seek to tear us apart?" Her plea echoed softly, hanging in the cool night air like a fragile promise yet to be fulfilled. The question resonated deep within the ancient halls, a siren call that stirred both hope and dread. And as the night stretched onward, the uncertainty of tomorrow mingled with the bittersweet weight of today, leaving Lucy poised on the edge of an inevitable confrontation with destiny itself. Chapter 10. The Escape and the Pursuit of Answers. A fierce roar and the pounding of rain against ancient stone shattered the eerie calm of the castle, as Lucy, Sophia, and their small band of allies burst from the crumbling portal. Outside, the supernatural guardians of Blackest Castle, shadows of wolf-like sentinels with eyes glinting red in the darkness, advanced in relentless formation, their movements synchronized like the rhythmic beating of a dark heart. In that frantic moment, the corridors that had once whispered secrets now transformed into avenues of peril, as the castle itself seemed to awaken a hunger for those who dared to defy its will. The escape was chaotic, yet driven by a singular purpose: survival and the desperate need for answers. Lucy and her companions darted through the labyrinth of winding passageways, clutching documents, forgotten keys, and fragments of family heirlooms that hinted at legacy responsibilities and secrets buried deep in bloodlines long thought lost. Every step was accompanied by the echo of pursuing threats, ominous growls from unseen packs and the distant, eerie call of supernatural voices merging with the storm's fury. Soon they reached the grounds where a battered car waited, a relic of modern safety amidst the ancient chaos. The vehicle's headlights cut swaths through the torrential downpour, illuminating the path as if to guide them out of the looming darkness. Lucy slid into the seat, her body trembling with adrenaline, while Sophia and the others hurried to join her. The engine roared to life, and as the tires screeched on wet asphalt, the castle receded into a nightmarish silhouette against the stormy sky. Inside the car, the atmosphere was charged with urgent whispers and terse dialogue as the escape unfolded, like a high-stakes race against time. "Did you see them?" Sophia asked in a strained whisper, her eyes darting to the rearview mirror as spectral figures and snarling guardians passed by. "They're not just legends, they're coming after us," added one of the allies, his voice tight with a mix of fear and determination. Lucy's mind was a whirlwind of questions. Every detail from the night, the unsettling transformation of the castle, the draining effects of the supernatural bond, told a story that was far from over. Amid the tension, an old family secret emerged from the depths of conversation. "My grandfather once told me that our bloodline has always been intertwined with forces beyond this world," one of Lucy's distant relatives confided, his voice low as he clutched a worn medallion. "We are destined to guard an ancient legacy, a duty that even the darkest of powers cannot sever." His words, heavy with responsibility and ancient sorrow, added a layer of gravity to their flight. As the car sped along winding country roads slick with rain, the landscape itself became an ominous blur of shadow and light. Jagged outlines of distant hills and twisted leafless trees moved past the windows in a frantic dance. Outside, thunder boomed, and the flash of lightning illuminated fleeting shapes that hinted at more than just natural phenomena. Perhaps specters from a past long intertwined with fate and family secrets. In the midst of the storm, The group discussed the enigmatic figure of Adrian, a shadowy antagonist rumored to be connected to Edric in ways that defied mortal understanding. "Adrian isn't just a whisper in the dark," Lucy said, her voice steady despite the turmoil churning inside her. "He's a catalyst, a force that challenges everything we believe about our lineage and about this uncanny bond with Edric." Sophia, ever the voice of reason in such moments, interjected, "If he's orchestrating events behind the scenes, then we're caught in a web that's far more complicated than we ever imagined." The conversation was punctuated by brief, determined silences, as if the storm outside compelled them to recognize that the secrets of their heritage carried both power and peril. The car's headlights occasionally revealed more of the treacherous. Road ahead, torn-up fields, ancient stone walls crumbling under the weight of time, and deep, foreboding valleys that swallowed the light. Every turn seemed to bring them closer, not only to safety, but also to an impending confrontation with an unknown force. The legacy of their blood and the burden of family destiny loomed over them, each heartbeat a countdown toward a clash that could redefine everything they knew. Amid the urgent dialogue and the racing of their thoughts, Lucy's internal monologue persisted, her mind a silent battleground where hope wrestled with dread. Will this bond, this unyielding love, protect me even as it drains me? She pondered fiercely, her eyes fixed on the unending, storm-swept road. And can we, as heirs to ancient legacies, navigate a fate that teeters between salvation and annihilation? Dae. The car hurtled forward, its engine a steady, defiant roar against the tempest. A profound, unsettling question remained suspended in the charged air. What new threat looms on the horizon, and will the path they have chosen lead them to salvation? Or, inexorably to ruin? Epilogue. A new dawn and the unending journey. As the first rays of dawn gently pierced the lingering mist, Lucy and Edric sat side by side on the worn wooden porch of their humble cabin. The once formidable, labyrinthine castle now lay, far in the distance, a dark, brooding memory softened by time and the promise of renewal. In this quiet haven, amidst the chirps of awakening birds and the soft rustle of leaves in a gentle summer breeze, they embraced a fragile normalcy, while knowing that the threads of their extraordinary lives were forever interwoven. Lucy's eyes, reflecting the pastel hues of early morning, were a mirror of resilience and hope. Over the past months, she had borne the weight of heartbreak and drawn strength from the supernatural bond that tethered her to Edric, a bond that, despite its draining consequences, had rekindled the embers of a love that transcended mortality. Now, in the tender light of a new day, the sacrifices made and the trials they had endured shimmered like distant constellations in a vast, uncertain sky. Each scar, both physical and emotional, told a story of loss and quiet courage, a narrative of love forged in the furnace of dark magic and ancient destiny. Edric's transformation from a creature of wild, untamed power to a man with regal grace had not been without its price. His eyes, often filled with the deep sorrow of forgotten battles, now shone with the promise of redemption. As he helped Lucy steady herself, their hands found one another, a soft, yet unyielding tether that spoke of an eternal vow. "We have fought through shadows and storms," he murmured, his voice a soothing blend of determination and tenderness. "Our journey has been marked by both sacrifice and love, and though darkness still lingers, I believe our bond will endure." Lucy nodded, her thoughts echoing his sentiment. In the quiet solitude of their modest shelter, she reflected on the relentless cycle of love and loss, the sacrifices etched into the very fabric of their beings. Every sleepless night spent haunted by visions, every tremor of fear when the supernatural forces threatened to overwhelm her had carved an indelible mark, a testament to the impossible promise of eternal reunion. Their shared journey was a tapestry woven with threads of heartache and hope, each moment a pledge that no force, not even the inescapable clutches of fate, could ultimately sever their connection. Outside, the world was beginning to stir with the promise of another day. The soft, ambient light caressed the cabin's weathered exterior, lending the simple structure an almost ethereal quality. In the distance, whispers of the old world could still be heard. The wind carried murmurs of ancient spells and echoes, of long-forgotten rites that had once bound the castle's dark magic to the destiny of its inhabitants. It was in these gentle remnants of the past that Lucy sensed the first hints of future challenges. Among them, the enigmatic Adrian loomed, a shadowy antagonist whose mysterious past and dark ambitions continued to stir unease beneath the surface. Over steaming mugs of tea, Lucy and Edric would sometimes sit in reflective silence, exchanging quiet glances that spoke of both contentment and lingering apprehension. Their conversations, though tender and filled with plans for a future bathed in hope, never fully dispelled the questions that danced at the edges of their thoughts. What new threat might emerge from the depths of that dark legacy? Could the lingering powers that had once exacted such a toll on their lives be permanently quelled, or would they, too, rise again to test the strength of their bond? In those reflective moments, Lucy's mind wandered to the sacrifices that had brought her here. The dreams shattered, the restless nights, and the battles fought both within and without. Yet, even in the face of such heavy burdens, a quiet conviction had taken root. Love, in all its complexity, was worth every hardship. Each fragment of pain was a reminder of what they had survived. Every tender touch, every shared secret, was a promise of resilience in a world where nothing was ever truly lost. The serenity of the dawn was juxtaposed with the undercurrent of mystery that pulsed ever quietly beneath it. The magic of the castle and the inexorable pull of ancient powers had not vanished. It merely slumbered, waiting for the next act in a saga that had been written in the annals of time. The couple, now united in both fate and love, knew that their unending journey would not be without its trials. The path ahead was shrouded in uncertainty, a labyrinth of challenges that would test their courage and their unyielding devotion. As Lucy gazed out over the dew-kissed landscape, she could almost feel the heartbeat of the world itself, a steady, insistent rhythm that merged with her own. In that liminal space between night's lingering mysteries and the hopeful promise of a new day, she whispered softly into the quiet, "Our journey is far from over. There are secrets yet to be unraveled and challenges yet to be faced, but together, we will face them." And with that, Lucy's words hung in the crisp morning air as an invitation to those who dared to follow their story, to delve deeper into the enigmatic past of Adrian and the ancient magic that still wove its spell around them. The call to explore, to question, and to dream was clear. The saga of their lives was an unending journey, and its next chapter promised revelations that could change everything.